Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Tampa City Council. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Clerk, would you call the roll?
Yes. Miranda. Here. Maniscalco. Here. Hurtak.
Here.
Young.
Here.
Vieira. Carlson. Here. And Clendenin.
Here.
We have a physical quorum.
Thank you. Okay, welcome back. I would like to hear a motion to open the 1:30 public hearings. We have a motion from Councilman Miranda, a second from Councilman Maniscalco. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The hearings this afternoon are quasi-judicial. If you're here to speak at a public hearing, would you please stand, raise your right hand, and be sworn in by our clerk?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to provide is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. Thank you so much. Item 101.
Good afternoon, City Council. My name's Dana Crosby Collier. I'm with the City Attorney's Office. Item number 101 is a petition seeking review of an Architectural Review Commission decision made at its meeting on February the 4th. The matter is ARC 26-97, and it's relating to property at 842 South Boulevard. In the initial application to the ARC, the applicant requested approval of 3 variances and 3 certificates of appropriateness. The latter was for additions to the property. At the time of the ARC meeting, 2 certificates of appropriateness and 1 variance were granted. However, because the ARC found the applicant failed to meet the criteria for all 6 criteria on 2 of the variances, the ARC denied those. The 2 variances that are before you today for review is a variance of a vehicular alley entranceway setback from 18 foot to 6 foot 6 inches, and a variance for the accessory structure, north side yard setback from 3 foot to 1 foot 9.5 inches. There was a related request for appropriateness certificate that was withdrawn after these variances were denied. On February 20th, the owner's agent, Saul Fleshman, appealed to the City Council, and this matter was set for public hearing at your March 5th meeting. So you will find in the backup materials for this item, we included a copy of the initial application, the staff's report, staff's photo presentation to the ARC, public comment, the ARC meeting minutes, the ARC's written decisions, the owner's petition for review and his backup, and the owner's affidavit establishing compliance with the city's notice requirements. You have before you a packet that includes the hearing procedures for today's meeting, as well as sample motions. There will be 2 motions ultimately at the end of this presentation. I've also included section 2761 of the code, which is the review procedures, and section 27114 of the code, which is ARC variance criteria. Pursuant to section 2761J2, the City Council will apply a de novo standard of review in this matter, so your decision is not limited to the record that was created during the ARC meeting, and you may take public testimony to accept new evidence. However, in your review, City Council should stand in the shoes of the ARC and apply all applicable ordinances to the facts before arriving at your decision. Again, we have 2 separate variances that are before you today. The variance of the vehicular entrance alleyway setback from 18 feet to 6 foot 6 inches, and the variance for the accessory structure north side yard setback from 3 feet to 1 foot 9.5 inches. Based on the applicant's failure to meet all 6 criteria in the code, the ARC denied these 2 variances. I'm going to review briefly the ARC criteria. Hardship criteria is found at 27114, and number 1, the alleged hardship or practical difficulties are unique and singular with respect to this property or with respect to the structure or building thereon, and are not commonly suffered with other property, structures, or buildings similarly situated. The hardship or practical difficulty does not result from the actions of the applicant. A self-created hardship or practical difficulty does not justify a variance. That's item number 2. Number 3, the variance, if granted, will not substantially interfere with or injure the health, safety, or welfare of others whose property would be affected by the allowance of the variance. Number 4, the variance is in harmony with and serves the general intent and purpose of Tampa's Land Development Code and the adopted comp plan. Number 5, allowing the variance will result in a substantial justice being done considering both the public benefits intended to be secured by the code and the individual hardship or practical difficulties that will be suffered due to the failure of council to grant the variance. And number 6, the variance, if granted, will allow a development that is consistent with the design standards and compatible with the historic pattern of development in the historic district. In this case, it's the Hyde Park Historic District. In individual findings on both variances, the ARC found that the applicant did not meet the requirements of subsection 2, that's the self-created hardship, and subsection 6, that is development consistent with the design standards for Hyde Park. In other words, the ARC, that's exactly what I just said. After considering all the evidence introduced in today's hearing, including the code provision that the ARC considered in making its decision, City Council may affirm or approve the ARC decision, which would be to deny the variances, overturn the ARC's decision and grant the variances, or remand the matter back to the ARC with directions indicating a basis for your remand. 2 motions will be required, as I mentioned, because there were 2 variance denials that are now submitted for review. John Marsh from Transportation and Ron Villa from Historic Preservation are here to answer any questions or assist you in your discussions. I'm available to answer any questions as well, and at this time, I'll turn it over to Ron so you can hear from Historic Preservation staff.
Good afternoon, Council. Ron Villa, I am a planner with Historic Preservation, and I'd like to bring everything into focus for you. As Dana stated, this is ARC-26-000097. We received an application on December 16, 2025, and it went to the ARC on February 2nd, 2026. There were multiple requests. There was a certificate of appropriateness approved for the primary structure for an addition, along with 3 variances. This is the property in question. This is at 842 South Boulevard. You see the triangular shaped lot here. It has some challenges. This is the primary structure, which is here. The addition to the primary structure was in the back, but we're going to focus on the accessory structure. Before I zoom in on that, I'd like to provide you with some photo presentation. Property in question is circled and highlighted in the green. It is on South Boulevard. It's just off of Bayshore Boulevard. You see the geometry of the property in question, and there is an accessory structure in the back. The accessory structure that's there is the one that we're discussing this afternoon. This is the Hyde Park vicinity map for the local district. You see the approximate location of where it's at, and an overhead aerial. There is an alley that runs to the rear of the property. Focusing on the primary structure, just a couple of shots so you get the inspiration of the vernacular of the primary structure. This is the front elevation, and this is the front and the south side. Focusing on the accessory structure, this is from South Boulevard looking into the property, primary structure, detached accessory structure with a garage door off the front. You have a porte-cochere that the vehicle has to go down. As you get closer to the accessory structure, this is the front. I'll show you some drawings of what they presented. There is a little visor that comes, a 1-story addition on the front, and that portion of the front, the lower section, is expanded to house a vehicle. This is the front elevation and the side of the accessory structure. This is going to be modified with that visor and a small addition to the front. Moving to the rear of that detached structure, this little lean-to for storage will be removed, and the request is to come in off the alley and put a garage door here. This is looking down the alley. This is from Boulevard, looking down the alley. As we continue down the alley, I wanted to show you some curb cuts off the alley that exist today. This is the property in question over here. As we continue down the alley, you see vehicular access to a property that faces Bayshore, the alley, and then the property in question. This is the little lean-to that is being requested to be removed. and the installation of the garage door here. Once again, going back to the subject site, this is the accessory structure that's there. There's 3 variances that Dana went over, but to focus on those. Variance number 1 is to add to the front, which is in the gray, so the car could fit in the accessory structure as indicated by the drawings. This one was denied. The second variance was approved to vest in the existing condition. And then the third one, off the rear, that was denied as well, was the vehicular access coming down the alley, going into the garage with a new garage door. They don't have the distance that transportation is looking for, and Mr. Marsh is here if you want some specifics. These are the drawings that were shown at the ARC. This is the front elevation, looking down the vehicular access down the driveway. This is existing. You have the garage door, and this is, I talked about the little visor that they're trying to put in there and bumping it out towards the street to accommodate the vehicle. And this is the rear that I showed the little lean-to for storage that will be removed, and the installation of the garage door off the alley. This is looking at the drawings as well. This is looking at the little bump out towards the front to house the automobile, to add that additional interior square foot. Just to refocus, I blew everything up for you so it's easier to read. The dimensions are there. Just to let you know that when variances come forward to the ARC, staff does not opine on those. It's strictly the finding of fact that Dana read into the record. And I do have their hardship here and the denial letters. So that concludes my portion of this presentation. I'll be here to answer any questions, and if you need these images for further discussion.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
What is the size of the garage currently?
We just talked about that outside. I think the interior from the front to the back is around 15 foot. You know,
Currently or?
currently.
Okay.
And then this is the addition that they're trying to do there to allow for today, you know, a standard car.
And what is the, how much addition do they want to add?
I'll let the agent talk about that, but it
Okay.
appears to be about 5 foot.
Okay,
There's not
so-
a dimension on this plan.
Okay. And how old is this structure?
This is a contributing structure that dates back to the early 1900s. It is indicated on the Sanborn map, and the one on the Sanborn map is this structure here. So it is a contributing structure.
Thank you.
Mr. Villa, what was the objection of the ARC board for variance number 1?
Number one, it failed to meet the burden required for criteria 2 and criteria 6 with respect to the presentation. And those
Yeah, we've got them here.
are here, yeah.
Somewhere here. Yes, Councilwoman Hurtak.
So I have a question about if you could put the site plan back up. Was this, do they have the proper division between the garage and the main house with the
Yeah.
addition? They have the 5 feet?
Yeah, all code is requesting here is 5 foot. They have
Yeah.
a dimension line here of 5'4".
4 inches. So
Excuse me?
I'm- Yeah, so I guess I'm not
let's
gonna
figure-
opine, I'm just,
Let's
yeah,
figure
okay.
out after when we're done. Okay. Next.
Okay, thank you. This all in the applicant? Right? So,
Okay, applicant.
Good afternoon, Saul J. Fleischman Jr., 324 Hyde Park Avenue, Tampa, Florida. I'm an architect, Fleischman, Garcia, Maslowski, and A little bit of my background. I was a founding board member of the Architectural Review Commission back in the 1990s. Chairman for most of the years. I was a founding board member of the historic Tampa Hillsborough County Preservation Board, and served on that for 20 years. Historic preservation is my love and passion. And one other bit, what interested me about this house, 842 South Boulevard, is that I actually was born in Tampa Heights Hospital, but came home to 849 South Boulevard, right across the street, where my grandparents lived and my parents lived for 2 years. So I grew up my first 2 years across the street. So we've done a really nice addition to this home, and we got tripped up a little bit by the contributing accessory garage structure, which was probably built in 1922 with the original house. And our variance is based on the hardship that it's an existing building built in 1922, and it's 1 foot 9.5 inches from the north property line as it exists. So we need to increase the size of it for the current size of vans, SUVs, large automobiles. It's about 19 or 20 feet inside dimension now, and we're asking for an 8-foot extension, and that's all. And we just want to extend the north property setback to accommodate this simple extension. And so reducing the required 3-foot setback for an accessory structure down to 1 foot 9.5 feet. And on the driveway, on the alley side, which is O'Brien Lane, we're asking for a 6 foot 6 inch setback rather than the 18 feet that the city code requires off an alley. And I have a lot of, I mean, I can go over the plans that Ron so wonderfully presented, but I want to show you some specific homes on O'Brien, on our block. So this first one is our house at 842 South Boulevard. The yellow dashed line is the edge of the alley. And we're asking again for variance to 6.6 feet on one side, but 12 feet and change on the other side. Number one here is 829 Bayshore Boulevard, and the garage door is 6 feet on average from the existing pavement. So it doesn't meet the 18-foot setback requirement. Number two, which is this building right here at 840 South Boulevard, the garage door is 10 feet on average from the existing pavement. Doesn't conform to the 18-foot setback. Number three, 832 South Boulevard, the garage door is 14 feet on average from the existing pavement. Does not meet the 18-foot setback. Number four, at 819 Bayshore Boulevard, garage door is 5 feet on average from the existing pavement. And then number five, at 810 South Boulevard, garage door is 12 feet on average from existing pavement. So we have 5 homes on O'Brien adjacent to our property that don't come close to meeting the 18-foot setback. And there's good reason, Mr. Marsh will tell you that, so that if you park a car in front of your garage door, you're out of the path of the alley. Well, our house has 120 feet and change driveway in front of the house, so we have plenty of area for the owner and his guests to park in the front. Having the garage door in the back allows him easy and safe access to the alley to exit or to enter, and not have to back 120 feet through 11-foot slot in the existing carport to get to South Boulevard. So our hardship, to conform with the city code, the existing contributing structure is the hardship, as it was built 1 foot, 9.5 inches from the side property line and does not conform to the current accessory structure setback of 3 feet, and was designed as a garage, but will not accommodate the modern-day large car, van, and SUV. And the garage being located at the rear of the site with the access to the alley is an appropriate location and use. It is consistent with the design standards and compatible with the historic district, and is typical throughout the historic district. I look forward to your questions and comments.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
Thank you. So it was said earlier that the current structure has been vested.
Yes,
So the structure has been vested, so we're really just looking for the separation for the new section, not the entire structure.
that's correct.
Okay, just making sure on that.
Yes.
Any
The
other
existing
questions?
structure and the 8-foot addition.
Okay, does that conclude your presentation?
That concludes my presentation.
Very good. Okay, is there anybody in the public that wishes to speak to this item? Yes, sir? Start with your name, please.
John Myers, Urban Planner 2, Transportation Engineering Division. I did the review. Just a point of clarification, 27-156-428, it's 18 feet for a single vehicle, entrance for a single vehicle, and it's 10 feet for a double, and a number of the examples he showed were for doubles. So if they were 10 to 14 feet, that meets code. So I just wanted to make that clarification.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else in the public wishes to speak to this item? Does staff have any additional comments? Ron? Anybody? Okay, we have a motion to close from Councilman Maniscalco. We have a second from Councilman Viera. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The hearing is closed. What is the will of council? Or any discussion? Mr. Shelby?
Just a reminder, you do have, in the packet that's been provided to you by the attorney, you have 2 separate items to decide, and you have 2 sample motion pages in your packet for your review. And again, you also have on the second page of your packet, beginning with the bottom of page number 1, continuing through number 6 on the backside of it, the hardship criteria for you to be able to cite to in making your decision.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
I will make one of the motions. I'm going to, this is agenda item 101 ARC 26-97. And this is the north yard setback from 3 foot to 1 foot 9.5 inches. I move to overturn the ARC's decision and hereby approve the applicant's request for the accessory structure, the north side yard setback from 3 feet to 1 foot 9.5 inches, as requested on application number ARC 26-97 for the property located at 842 South Boulevard, because we find that the applicant met all of the 6 criteria stated in section 27-114 of the city code that are required to meet for a variance as follows. I disagree. I do not believe this is a self-created hardship. I believe that since the structure has been vested, this is simply an addition to that structure to make it fit a car that fits today's standards. So I found that, and I also don't believe that it will affect the design standards and compatibility with the historic pattern of the historic district, because it's inside the yard. So that's my motion.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilwoman Hurtak. We have a second from Councilman Viera. Is there any discussion on the motion? I mean, I'll reiterate, I concur with Councilwoman Hurtak's assessment of it. It's also an area of town where parking is critical, and to be able to have a garage that will accommodate a vehicle is probably a good thing for the neighborhood. So there we go. Okay. Hearing no other discussion. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. And we have one more.
That was Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. That was, that's been delineated as variance 2.
Correct.
And I believe there's variance 1 remaining.
Anybody want to make a motion on this one?
So I move to overturn the ARC's decision hereby approved. This is for variance 1. The applicant's request for a variance of the vehicular entrance alley setback from 18 feet to 6 feet 6 inches as requested in application number ARC 26-97 for the property located at 842 South Boulevard, because we find that the applicant has met all 6 criteria stated in section 27-114 of the city code that are required to be met for a variance as follows. This is not the main structure, this is the accessory dwelling unit, and I think as was stated in variance 2, although different, this is not a self-created hardship. It's you mentioned because, you know, how vehicles are, modern vehicles, how they need to fit. The gentleman mentioned in regards to having access instead of the 120 feet from a very narrow entranceway on the driveway. This is just, it just makes sense. I mean, do I have to take it further with more scientific fact? But I think it speaks for itself.
I would only add that that accessory structure has been vested already.
Yeah, vested, it's already there, grandfathered in, if you want to say, so that's it.
And it's a strategic goal for the city to utilize alley access for vehicles, specifically in our historic areas, and that it is that type of this variance and access to these garages off these alleys is fairly standard in Hyde Park. So it's not a uniform system. So. Okay, so we have a motion from Councilman Maniscalco, second from Councilwoman Hurtak. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes. Go ahead.
Motion carried unanimously.
Okay, 102. People come and go so quickly around here. Yes, sir. Welcome to Tampa City Council.
Thank you. Good afternoon, City Council. My name is Taylor Bolt, and I'm with the Legal Department. I'm here today to present agenda item number 102, which concerns VRB application 2583 for a property located at 541 Lucerne Avenue. The petitioner for this application was Mr. Joseph Fontana. The variance that they had initially requested from the board was an increase in height from 35 feet to 53 feet, along with a reduction of their front yard setbacks from 25 feet to 4.9 feet. The Variance Review Board had denied petitioner's application on February 10th, 2026. And before I proceed further, Council, I just would like to point out that this petition for review will likely be different from any other petition for review you have heard before. And that is because this application was not denied for substantive reasons or on its merits, but rather for procedural reasons. And this is because the Variance Board's rules of procedure, specifically Rule 7.1, states that an applicant shall appear in support of their application or request. However, if the applicant fails to appear once, the board is allowed to grant them a continuance. If the applicant does not appear a second time, the board can deny the application. And that is exactly the situation we have here today. Petitioner's application was first meant to be heard on December 9th in 2025. However, prior to the hearing, the applicant submitted a written request for continuance and then proceeded to not show up at the hearing in support of their application or the requested continuance. Similarly, the application was continued to the February 10th, 2026 hearing date, where again, the applicant submitted a written request for continuance prior to the meeting and then proceeded not to show up at the hearing date in support of the application or the request for continuance. With me today, I have Stephen Eisner, who following my introduction will provide a more detailed factual overview which led to the Variance Review Board's procedural denial of this application. And just as a general reminder to City Council as well, today's hearing is governed by Code Section 2761, subsection J2, which states that this is a de novo review hearing and therefore council shall not be limited in its reviews to any information or documentation upon which the denial was based. I know that council has been provided with a number of background materials. I would like to point out a few that I believe Mr. Shelby had just handed out to everyone. Firstly, you've received a copy of the Variance Review Board's Rules of Procedures, along with some sample motion language for potential action that City Council can make after today's hearing, along with a copy of the standard rules of procedures which govern petitions for reviews, and a copy of Code Section 2761 as well. City Council, after today's hearing, you will have the ability to make three possible actions. The first would be to affirm the Variance Review Board's procedural denial of petitioner's application. The second will be to remand this application back to the Variance Review Board with specific direction for instructions for them to follow. And lastly, City Council does have the ability to overturn the Variance Review Board's procedural denial. However, given the unique factual situation presented before the board today, it would be our recommendation that if the board does choose to overturn this procedural denial, we request that this application still be remanded back to the Variance Review Board, as it was never heard on its merits, and they should be heard for the first time at the Variance Review Board and not at City Council on a petition to review. I will be available if council has any questions, but if not, I will hand it off to Mr. Eister.
Does council have any questions? Hearing none. Okay.
Good afternoon, Council. To just recap what Taylor...
Start with your name.
Sorry, Stephen Eister, Urban Planner 2, Development and Growth.
Thank you.
Just to give a brief recap of what Taylor presented to you, this is for VRB 2583. The owner is Joseph Fontana. The applicant was Colin Rice. The property address is 541 Lucerne Avenue. The zoning is residential single family. The variance request had two requests. One was to increase the height from 35 feet to 53 feet, or 61 feet from mean sea level, which is ground to sky, and then reduce the front yard setback from 25 feet to 4.9 feet. The zoning of this property is RS60, so per 27-156, the following setbacks are in place. RS districts have a 25-foot front setback, 20-foot rear setback, 7-foot side setback, and 35-foot height. This is the application timeline. The application was submitted on August 13th, 2025, accepted and routed on September 2nd, scheduled for the November 18th hearing on September 19th. Opposition letters were received after noticing was sent out between November 4th and November 17th. There was no quorum at the November 18th hearing, so all cases got continued to December. On December 4th, a request of continuance was submitted to move to the February 10th hearing. The applicant did not appear for the continuance request, only provided a memo. On February 9th, the applicant requested a second continuance to the March 10th, 2026 hearing. The applicant then, the hearing was the next day, in February 10th. The applicant did not appear. The board denied the continuance and the case per the rules and procedures. This is a more detailed overview of the timeline of this address, showing back in, if we bring in the focus, there was a complaint started in 2015 for some work without permits, and then following a combination of residential trade permits and utility applications, and then finally in 2025, there was the variance application that was applied for. And then I'm available for any other questions or concerns about the timeline.
Mr. Chairman, I was in the back watching this, and I heard from the previous gentleman, did you say you recommend this to be remanded back to the Variance Review Board? Or that, I know I see it's one of our options, but I missed that. Can you repeat that?
Yep, of course. I'm Taylor Bullitt with the legal department. So what I was discussing, Councilman Maniscalco, was the three possible options that City Council has, which is affirm, remand, and what I believe you overheard was when I was discussing the possibility of overturning this decision, that if you do decide to overturn it, that it still be remanded back to the...
Okay, that's the part. Thank you very much. I just wanted to clarify.
Thank you. Okay. Is there anybody else in staff that's going to present, or does that conclude staff's presentation? Okay.
I believe that concludes staff's presentation at this time.
Very good. Okay, applicant, petitioner. Good afternoon, Mr. Singer. Welcome back to Tampa City Hall.
Good afternoon, council. It is a pleasure to be here. I am joined by the applicant and homeowner, Mr. Fontana, and his son, Alex. I have been in front of City Council now, this is my 20th year practicing, which I find somewhat hard to believe. And this is a day of firsts for me because I am here to ask you to approve a variance that I don't believe we need. So this is a very strange circumstance, and I'd like to go through it somewhat briefly with you. And I'm going to hand to Mr. Shelby to hand out to you. Some pertinent language that will explain why this variance that I'm asking you to approve is not necessary. Mr. Eisner alluded to a previous dispute that started in 2015 about some permitting issues. There was some disagreement between the applicant and city legal and city building department about the propriety of permitting. Ultimately, that resulted in a legal action, a declaratory action being taken, which then resulted in a settlement, final settlement agreement that this council approved on June of 2024. And I have provided you that language in the agreement, and I would just like to go through some of it with you so that you understand better what the issues are.
I'm sorry, City Council, and I apologize to
Start with your
Councilor.
name, please.
This is highly improper. I'm sorry,
It
council.
absolutely is improper, so I apologize for that. 29 Hargett with the City Legal Department. What Mr. Singer is about to start to get into is the pending litigation that I am handling on behalf of the City of Tampa. He is going to raise the settlement, he has raised the settlements agreement. It is the subject of ongoing litigation with Division B in the
Mr. Shelby, I
13th
have to object, and I have to make a point of order that you instruct city staff to allow me to
Hold on one
finish.
sec.
Certainly, well, no, excuse me, may I?
Well, I was going to get some order and then recognize you, but
Oh,
yes.
thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes.
If I can, a point of order has been raised. Could you, the speaker who interrupted, could you, after introducing the necessity of it, as you state, could you state who you are again for the record?
Good afternoon, Toya Hargett with the City Attorney's Office. I'm raising this point of order, given the fact that Mr. Singer, on behalf of Mr. Fontana, is raising a settlement agreement that is the subject of ongoing litigation. What he is going to argue has to do with his reading or his understanding of what that settlement agreement entails and requires of both parties. That has been the subject of a motion for enforcement in front of Judge Wolf of the 13th Judicial Circuit, and Judge Wolf has denied that motion to enforce in the manner in which he's asking this body to adhere to. So I'm raising this because I believe that under your rules of procedure, specifically 7G, it is your own policy that you do not discuss matters that are subject to ongoing litigation. That order by Judge Wolf, which denied their request to enforce a settlement agreement in the way that they're envisioning it, also requires the parties to participate in non-binding arbitration. That scheduling is pending as we speak. If you have any other questions, I can't answer them, but in deference to your policy, I'm trying to abstain from engaging on too many facts that would be unnecessary for the point of raising this issue.
I'm going to have a discussion with my attorney for a second. What I'm hearing from the point of order, I'm kind of not going to, I'm not going to accept the point of order, I believe, but on this basis, unless you tell me that I'm wrong. It seems as though what she's saying might affect that case, but not necessarily here the facts. What we're being presented here may be more evidence for us to consider on this particular case.
You cannot consider this over here on the merits.
Yeah.
Because it hasn't been heard by the VRB. This was,
Right.
This was denied on a procedural
But this is de novo.
ground. It's de novo for evidence, but the fact is, it would have an absurd impact, an absurd effect if you interpret that as saying that anybody who just wants to bypass the VRB just doesn't have to show up twice, and it comes to city council, so it could be heard the first time by you.
Okay, let me parse that out. And that's not what I'm saying. On the situation where she says,
Well, before we go any further, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, let me just say one thing, because this may go to the point.
Right.
She raised, in informing you of council's rules of procedure.
Right.
And council, you have heard this rule stated
Many times.
many times, and that Rule 7G states as follows. Council should avoid any discussion of matters at a public meeting where the city is or is likely to be a party in litigation without concurrence of council. And Ms. Toyna Hargret here is representing, Toyna Aina Hargret, I want to pronounce it correctly, is here representing the city of Tampa and representing the city attorney.
Question. Is this settlement agreement finished? Is this a final document? Is this done deal? And is this settlement agreement subject to?
You're asking a question of law. Here's my question, and I guess
Is your point that the settlement agreement is
the
subject to
subject,
litigation?
it is the subject of
Yes.
litigation as we speak.
Okay.
Here's my
Yes.
question, though. My question for, and certainly, Mr. Singer, you have the right to be able to create the record and raise your objection for the record, but I must ask, are you going to be talking about the order to enforce the settlement agreement that was furnished by Judge Wolf, the circuit court judge?
Thank you, Mr. Shelby. David Singer for the applicant. I will not be discussing the court case at all. And in addition, I will not be discussing the substance of any variance request. I will simply be discussing the procedural point that we were at and ask the council for procedural relief that you have already granted in June of 2024.
To whom?
Pardon me, sir?
In June of 2024, you mean when, in the passage of,
The settlement
in
agreement.
the passage of council's approval of the settlement
In the
agreement?
unanimous approval of the settlement agreement, yes, sir.
Understood, understood.
Councilman Carlson, you had a question?
Mr. Shelby, as I heard you read that, it says that the city council's rule is that city council cannot discuss this.
That's right.
But it doesn't prohibit him from telling us.
Sure, that's true.
So
But again,
he has the
your
right to
decision,
tell us, but we
he
can't
certainly
discuss
has the right to make his record. You certainly have the right to hear it, but without the concurrence of council, you'd be, unless you waive your
But
rules, which would
after-
be against,
after-
would be against the legal department's advice to waive your rules because they do not concur with your discussion. You can hear whatever you like. You just can't discuss it amongst yourselves and then make a decision
Yeah,
based
so
on
there-
what you hear.
So based on the rules you cited, he can say whatever he wants, and then you and the city attorney can advise us not to discuss certain parts of what he says. If he crosses a line that you deem he can't cross, right? So can we allow him to present then?
Unless does the city attorney's office takes a position on that?
My only concern is that in your
If you could just state your name, I'm sorry.
Again, 29 Harger for the city attorney's office. Again, my concern is that once he starts talking about things, I won't be able to rebut them, I won't be able to stop you, and I won't be able to explain why your deliberations will necessarily start discussing them. He's raised it, he says he's only going to be talking about the procedural, but it's clear he's going to be talking about the substance of the settlement agreement, and he's talking about it now by talking about June of 2024. However, a court has already said that they're not prepared, declined to enforce it in the manner in which he believes it should be read.
Now,
And the city,
you will have an opportunity after public comment for additional stuff, so you could have rebut after that point in these procedures, correct? So you have another opportunity, you have another bite of the apple after the public comment.
The question in this, council, is whether she'll have an opportunity to unring a bell or put toothpaste back in the jar, in the tube.
Okay, I'm gonna hear from two other council persons, then make a decision. Councilman Randall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is this case open? It's still a live case by the judge in this
yes,
case?
yes, yes, Your Honor. Yes, yes, Chair.
I would
mean,
be very cautious to continue because this case, the judge has not made a final ruling on this case. And anything we say may be held against us or against the petitioner. That would be unfair to the petitioner or unfair to us, to the city government. That's my opinion.
Also, I believe Council, Mr. Singer, raised the fact that this might very well be a variance that, the way he phrased it, if I'm mistaken, or not mistaken, would not necessarily have to be granted if ultimately at the end of this problem that is being litigated, the matter might be moot. Is that a correct statement?
I think there are
Name.
David Singer for the applicant. Ms. Shelby, there are multiple ways for any applicant to get relief, and one certainly is to come to their elected representatives and say to them, you have already made a decision on a particular matter. I don't need to at all discuss why you made the decision, what went into the decision. 6 of you on this board have seen this agreement already. And all we would ask is that you look at it again and say there is no need for the procedural denial because the variance in itself wasn't necessary. I'm not asking you to say, was it a good agreement, a bad agreement? I'm not asking you to say, did the Variance Review Board evaluate the correct criteria? It should not have gotten there in the first place. That's all I'm asking you to say. And then say, you know, if to the extent that you need procedural relief, we would grant it.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
For me, what's in front of us is, I mean, my bigger issue is why you didn't show up to the VRB. I mean, all the other stuff's irrelevant. I just want to know why you didn't show up when you were supposed to show up.
Well, they haven't
But-
finished their question.
No,
their
but that's
presentation.
all I want in the presentation.
Yes.
If you give more information, I will not, I mean, we're here simply for that information.
Thank you for your question. I think it's a very pertinent one, and we didn't show up because you already approved what was requested. You, the city council, approved what was requested. It would be an absurd result to go back to a variance board, have them make a decision that city council has already approved, and then if the variance board were to deny it on its substance, have to come to you and say, you approved this in June of '24, and then
Thank
the
you.
variance board came back.
Mr. Singer, I have one question before I make a decision on the objection. Is, so you could stipulate the fact that you have a case pending before a judge and the settlement agreement is substantially involved in that case before the judge?
Yes, we moved to enforce the settlement agreement that you approved in front of Judge Wolf as on a parallel track for relief, yes.
Okay, so with that stipulation and understanding council's rules that we do not discuss or things that are pending Could you make, I'll give you an opportunity to make an argument why we shouldn't consider our rules, and as our attorneys have just said, why we should not, why we should waive our own rules to consider that information. I'll give you a couple minutes to make that case.
Is that something that council would contemplate? Because if I...
Well, I'm just giving him an opportunity.
Well, he could make that argument, but what I'm saying to you is that the city attorney is not concurring,
Is there
wait
a
a second,
legal
I'm
point?
not finished, nor am I.
Oh, boy, I like this. Coño.
$1,000.
No, because quite frankly, if I can be heard,
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Shelby.
Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. You are here on a petition for review that was filed by the applicant, which procedurally, after the dismissal, was necessary as an attorney to be able to protect the rights of his client, to be able to keep this case going, to not create a process for down the line saying you missed the opportunity to have this process play out. So from a legal standpoint, it's appropriate for him to file the petition for review. What is the petition for review? It's a petition for review of a dismissal on a procedural process. What is very clear and undisputed is that Mr. Singer and his client did not have the opportunity to present the merits of the case to the VRB. So if you want to subject yourselves to this hearing, which you very well might, to grant him the due process to allow you to be able to ascertain whether it was appropriate for the VRB to dismiss this on procedural grounds, that is, and upon that, make the decision. That would be appropriate. But for you to get into the merits of the agreement itself, which is presently subject to litigation, and by the way, and I don't want to testify, but it's a good question for the city attorney, unless Mr. Singer wants to be able to present it, are the words of Judge Wolf with regard to the fact that a conflict exists within the agreement warranting further litigation. That being the case, I would not recommend, and it would be against the advice of counsel, for you to hear this case on its merits.
Well, I think that right there jumped to, I think, the point that needed to be made right from the beginning. So thank you for finding that point at the end. Councilman Vera.
So, I mean, in light of what Mr. Shelby said, maybe my issue is inapplicable, but I was going to ask, I mean, we have a petitioner here who has theories of recovery, and is there any way, Mr. Shelby, that they can speak and then we can not engage with them on this issue so that we don't actively deal with whatever you want to call it, concurrent litigation, whatever it may be? Let Ms. Hargret talk about the challenges with this, and then we determine, or is what you said pretty much wiping out any suggestion that I have?
Ms. Hargret. May I inquire, Mr. Chairman?
What is your inquiry?
My inquiry does she have a copy of the order to enforce the settlement agreement?
Oh, yes, the order denying?
Yes.
29 Harder for city legal? I absolutely do. I have copies for city council, and that's the order denying.
May I present it, please, to them? Is there a copy for Mr. Singer?
Yes.
Thank you.
Council, I'm going to direct your attention to the one-page order, and specifically, I'm going to point to ordered and adjudged as follows, specifically number 2.
Everybody finished reading? Yep. So, Mr. Singer, do you have a response to this before we make a final determination?
David Singer, Mr. Chairman, or Mr. Shelby, could one of you repeat the specific question that I can respond to?
Do you have a response to the city attorney's position on this before I make a final determination about which direction you're going to go?
Oh, yes. There are two avenues for relief for this applicant. They explored their first avenue for relief through this very body by agreeing to a set of terms and conditions in a final settlement agreement that you approved. The city then decided not to uphold their end of that agreement and directed the applicant incorrectly that the method for relief was through the variance board. Grudgingly, the applicant submitted a variance application. At the same time, and on a parallel track, filed a motion in circuit court to ask the judge to also enforce the terms of the settlement agreement. And so I submit to you today, you absolutely, as a city council, have the jurisdiction, the ability, and the authority to look at what you approved and say, yeah, the applicant doesn't need to go through this process because he already did, and the city already agreed.
So with all due respect, isn't it, you're trying to get two bites of an apple? That if one is true, the other can't be true. So how are you going down these two different paths?
So I understand the question. I disagree with the construction. An applicant has the ability, the right to seek relief in whatever form is available. And in this case, there are two forms that are available. We would much prefer to be here before you because you were the original approvers of the language. I don't want to have to go to a judge who's seeing this for the first time, who has no context about zoning, about variances, about height issues within the city. We want you to say, yes, we looked at this, we examined this, we agreed to it. End of story, no more process needed.
So for the city attorney and our city council attorney, is it appropriate, since the applicant has chosen to use litigation on this issue, is this hearing, is this appropriate?
The hearing is appropriate to the extent that he is appealing the procedural denial of the VRB.
Yeah.
And only limited to that procedural issue, which was raised by Council Hurtek. Any discussion, I mean, I'm hearing, we're not going to talk about the settlement agreement, but we're talking all about the settlement agreement. I'm really concerned that every single thing that each one of you says is going to be reduced to a transcript. It is going to become part of an amended proceeding, and it will come back to us in the litigation. I cannot rebut the things that Mr. Singer is saying because I don't want to engage in the facts of the case. I don't want to argue them here. It would be inappropriate. So I almost feel as though I'm a bit, handcuffed. So if you're limited to the procedural issue, certainly that would be appropriate. But anything dealing with the substance, which again was never discussed by the VRB, would not be appropriate in the city, in my estimation.
Okay, Mr. Singer, as you move forward in this case for the appeal for the Variance Review Board, I would appreciate if you would not include the information on the settlement agreement per the advice of city attorney and our city council attorney. I'll move forward just on the evidence for your review of the variance review.
Mr. Chairman, that puts me in a very difficult position and puts the applicant in a difficult position because it is the language of the agreement that triggers the procedural request for you to overturn. And so the only compromise that I can think of as I stand here is what Mr. Bolt suggested to you. You had three options. I would, at this point, if the council is not inclined to hear argument that includes simply reading the language of the settlement agreement, I would suggest that you remand this to the Variance Review Board, and we can go through the process that way. And then, if necessary, even though, again, I don't believe we need to be here, we could come back and say we have gone through the channels and get into the merits as opposed to the procedure.
Okay. Do you have anything else to state for the case, than what you just stated, or are you done with your presentation?
Will you give me 1 second?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, members of council, that concludes my presentation today.
Thank you. Councilman Vera.
Yes, sir. So, remanding to the VRB is one option. Is there another option on the table of a I don't want to use the word continuance, but of maybe allowing the council more time, the council in terms of the attorneys with an S, to flesh these legal issues out that were just presented to us? Would that be something that?
Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney.
And if I may, just before, and thank you, Mr. Shelby, I apologize. No, because these are issues that have arisen that have great bearing on this case. And again, obviously, everybody's ready to go and so forth, but just more time may be an act of, I don't want to use, of professional accommodation on a case like this.
Mr. Shelby.
Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. That is a fair question, but for the fact that a continuance does not bring you forward in time to be able to remedy the fact that the VRB never heard this to begin with. So upon what are you then reviewing? What you're reviewing now is a technical determination based on circumstance and findings that said that there was a basis within the code for the VRB to dismiss it. So the two options, I suspect, that does raise another option. You can affirm the VRB's decision procedurally and uphold its decision, and then the other case will take its course, whatever that course is, and whatever remedies exist. And certainly even a decision of this body to do that also has additional safeguards procedurally for the applicant. So what I'm saying to you is, I understand where you're going, and it sounds like a fair point because time might resolve this issue one way or the other, but you're not at that point today. The question is whether there's a basis, a legal basis that would not prejudice either the applicant or the city by a continuance by city council. Now, if you remand it, certainly you could have instructions to the VRB, but then again, what is the basis for remanding it? If it met the criteria within the code, what is the message you're sending to the VRB? What direction?
Okay, for reference council comments, I want to just be careful, as you heard from city attorney, the statement that you make can be used in the record. We still have public comment, we still have additional staff comment, we still have rebuttal available. So if you have any specific questions or specific that you want to ask, this would be the time. Councilman Miranda.
And if I can,
I just want to say this. When something has been discussed this many times, and you're an honorable man, I know you're an attorney, I don't know Mr. Fontana, but I assume he's an honorable just as you are. That's not the case here. The case here that we're getting involved in a situation where we can't solve it one way or the other without going somewhere else. This judge said here, court finds a conflict exists between section 1.1 and 2.1 settlement agreement warranting further litigation. Who am I to tell him that I got to do it my way or the highway or your way or somebody else's way? I'm not qualified to say that. He's the judge. He just gave us an order and we're saying, we sound like 47 canaries in a cage trying to do something that we can't do. That's what I'm trying to say. Your client deserves to finish this thing out to get what he needs. I can't give you that one way or the other. It's got to be through the process, what we haven't done.
Okay, so is there anybody in the public that wishes to speak this item? Come on forward, please. If you wish to speak to this item, if you'd line up on the wall to the, your right, our left.
Mr.
If
Shelby,
I
can I make a point of order before?
Point of order, please. Yes, sir.
If the public is to comment on this, and if anything goes into the record, I would ask that you limit it to the very specific issue of the procedural issue from the VRB, and no substance may be discussed.
Nobody could say it more succinctly. I was about to say that myself. Thank you.
Okay.
If I could make that clear for the record, just so it comes from my mouth, please. Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney. I agree with the applicant's counsel here. The only subject of this review hearing is the procedural process of the dismissal. Anything that would go to the merits of the case, any opinion you might have, anything that you might want to say, is not only relevant, but can also taint the record. So I'm going to ask you to be very careful to limit yourself as to the fact that what is before this board today is a dismissal on procedural grounds. Counselor, do you want to add anything to what I just said as a cautionary statement?
David Singer for the applicant. I think that was perfect. Thank you, Mr. Shelby.
Thank you. Counsel?
29 Harger for legal. The only thing I would like to say is that procedural issue is the failure to appear to argue your own motion to continue and thus not having your application heard.
Do we have consensus on that? Mr. Singer, are you okay with that direction?
David Singer for the applicant. I am okay with that direction with the caveat that it is in the record that there were grounds, colorable, legitimate grounds, for the applicant not to show up to the Variance Review Board under the belief that he had already been granted the relief requested.
Okay, this is
May I,
just about- okay,
excuse
Mr.
me, if
Shelby.
I can just follow up.
Yes,
Mr.
Mr.
Singer, could you tell this board how that position was communicated to the legal department or to staff prior to the second continuance date that was set?
David Singer for the applicant. Given your direction, I want to be careful
Yeah.
with what I introduce and what I say. I will tell you there was email correspondence between the applicant and the legal department requesting a continuance, and that email correspondence went unresponded to.
And that was for the second continuance?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay.
But in furtherance of the applicant's position that they had taken, that the relevant request had already been granted by this body. So when you are considering again later, should you or should you not?
Let's restrict that conversation until later when you come back.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now we're going to move to public comment. And I'm assuming the folks that are here for public comment understand the direction that's been given to our attorneys. If you would like to come for public comment, please come to the podium. Start with your name, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Right, hello, Barbara Vaca, 544 Lucerne. I live directly across the street. Not really sure what I can say, should say.
Can I stop
can't
for 1
say.
second? Have y'all all been sworn in? Everybody here been sworn in? Okay, and I'm sorry, you can start your time again and start with your name again,
Okay,
please.
Barbara Vaca, V-A-K-A. I live across the street, 544 Lucerne Avenue. Not really sure what I can say, not cross the line, not saying, other than I believe it's appropriate to say that I'm in favor of what the Variance Review Board did, denying the application based on not attending, the applicant not attending, since they're the ones that filed the application.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next speaker, please. Start with your name.
I have an extra minute.
Okay. Good, Mr. Shaw.
Oh, my.
One name, Carol Ann Bennett. That's 4 minutes.
All right, Bob Aberger, 540 Bosphorus. I'm sorry we're all here having to go through this again. I've attended all the meetings with regard to this item because of the importance that I felt it had on its impact in setting precedent and character. I was here, and you can probably blame me, at the Variance Review Board when the decision was made to turn it down based upon the lack of appearance, because it was 11:30 at night. 20 of the 30 folks who had shown up to speak had given up and gone home. I had never seen an application with less merit, and I spoke that to the variance board, and I said, save all our time and put a fork in it. The city attorney provided them the guidance that based upon the lack of appearance on 2 occasions and the failure to communicate with regard to any intent to not appear or reason not to appear, that they had full grounds to deny based upon procedure. And we all got to go home. Now here we are again, and my great hope is that you will not continue this. I have heard a compelling argument, most of which I vehemently disagree with. I encourage you not to take the bait as you hear the argument to try and draw you into a settlement agreement. Stay away from it. Procedures here were very clear. The variance board did their job. The applicant did not appear, did not communicate. He's already made it clear if had it been heard, he would not have deemed it worth honoring. So please deny and save us any more time on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Start with your name.
My name is Harold Gallup. I reside at 540 West Davis Boulevard. I am, when I say a little confused, if you had a settlement agreement that bypassed completely.
Remember, we're
Sir.
not talking.
Pardon?
I'm going to ask you not to raise the issue of the settlement agreement.
I'm sorry. Let me reframe that. It appears we're standing here today with the Variance Review Board never having been able to review in a public session the request for 53, 61 feet, depending on sea level, on variance setbacks on the front that are obnoxious in its own face, and to extend a wall 61 feet. And these are in the application.
Sir, I'm going to ask you to not talk about the merits of the underlying case. This is purely a procedural matter.
I'm just saying they have not had the chance to review, so send it back to VRB, where in the public session, public could be heard.
If you remember that during the direction that was given to our attorney staff, we're only limiting it to a very narrow item, and that is just the Variance Review Board not hearing the case and rejecting it based on non-appearance.
I apologize.
None of the merits of the case itself should be talked about right now.
And Counsel, I'm going to ask you.
I would just ask a no vote, and you will pass what you need to pass.
Thank you.
And Counsel, just for the purposes of the record, I'm going to ask you to disregard any discussion involving the merits of the underlying
Did you wish
case.
to speak? We have one more public speaker. Go ahead. Start with your name, please.
Hi, I'm Heather Kuipers. I live across the street at 546 Lucerne. Since we can't talk about the case, I will tell you that the neighbors have gotten all together. We were planning on being here for the first time, and then there wasn't a quorum. Disappointing when you get everyone together and we're all gonna go down there. And then a lot of us showed up in December. A lot of us. That got pushed, unfortunately. Then you're rallying the troops again, people clearing their schedules again. We're here in February, along with over 20 people signed a petition, which they'll get to see maybe one day. And if you look on the website, you can see all the people who wrote letters in opposition of this. We all just wanted to be able to say our piece in some sort of public forum, so we were here. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else in the public that wishes to speak to this item? Hearing none, public comment is now closed. Staff, you have an opportunity. Do you have any additional information? City staff?
City staff. Again, this is going to be the opportunity. This is going to be the opportunity for city staff if you want to introduce or rebut. Either way, Mr. Singer will have the opportunity for the last word for rebuttal.
Okay, I just want to state again that the reason why we're here is because of the applicant's failure to attend. Oh, Toyin Ina Hargett, City Legal. The reason why we're here is because of the applicant's failure to attend the hearings that he pursued. The applicant was clearly made aware of the importance of attending and the consequences of not attending. It is also my understanding that city staff, specifically Susan Johnson-Velez and legal department, as well as Stephen Eister, advised or encouraged the applicants to attend their own application, and that they declined to do so. So again, this is a situation of their own making. I'm not going to talk about the substance. I can't. I wish I could, but that would be the sum total of what I have to offer at this point.
If I can, may I inquire?
Mr. Shelby?
You raised the fact of staff being in contact, or is there anybody who could testify to that?
Absolutely.
But obviously, you're not in the position of being able to testify yourself, are you?
I'm not.
Okay.
But Stephen Eister can let the city council know his efforts to engage them for their own application.
Start with your name, please.
Stephen Eister, Urban Planner 2, Development Growth Management. As the facilitator of the VRB, when the second continuance did come with such short notice, I did reach out to the applicant, Mr. Rice, and asked if he would be there to represent his application. He told me no, he would not be in attendance to represent his application, and that he will be at dinner.
Thank you.
So with that, it would be our recommendation that City Council uphold VRB's denial on the procedural grounds. If City Council is not inclined to do that, at a minimum to, at the most, remand it back down to them to have it heard on the substance. But certainly, this council and the VRB's rules of procedure need to be upheld, and circumventing them would not be appropriate. So those would be our recommendations.
Thank you. Okay, applicant, rebuttal.
David Singer for the applicant. I want to just make it clear, there was certainly no intended disrespect to the VRB, and there was certainly no intended disrespect to the neighbors. There was a colorable position of law that was taken. There was advocacy on behalf of an applicant. And I hope that you consider that when you consider your next move here in the next couple of minutes. I respect Mr. Vieira's recommendation that there either be a continuance to look into whether or not you can hear this. I believe you can. Or, as Ms. Hargett said, at worst, send this back to the VRB, and I suppose we can have a substantive discussion with them, and if people are unsatisfied with that result, then we could potentially come back here and speak with you all about it. But to dismiss this outright would be a miscarriage today. Thank you.
Thank you. Does that conclude your rebuttal?
That concludes.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
We have a motion to close from Councilman Maniscalco. I have a second from Councilman Miranda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Anybody want to make a motion? Councilwoman Hurtak.
I move to uphold the Variance Review Board's denial of the variance application VRB 25-83 for property located at 541 Lucerne Avenue because petitioner failed to provide competent and substantial evidence to overturn the Variance Review Board's decision to deny the application based upon the rules of procedure, based upon the applicant's statement of not believing they needed to go to the VRB and our staff statement about reaching out and contacting them.
And if I may, Mr.
We have a
Chair.
motion from Councilwoman Hurtak. I have a second from Councilman Maniscalco. Councilman Vieira.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. So again, I'm going to vote against that, and here's why. I think there's a third way, which is to either send this back to the VRB to deny it on that basis. I think assumes that there was some reasoning, outside of a theory to progress the case, that I think is becoming apparent now, that to truly flesh this out, to truly be able to find the dispositive issues on this, you either need to see if we can really hear this and take a look at the settlement issues, or alternatively send it back to the VRB. I think that's the better compromise on this, because I think the foundation of this pretty much makes the the failure to go to the VRB seem as if it was a flagrant, we're just not going to be there. No, it was based upon a understanding that I think is becoming apparent now may not have been so. And I do think that's the better option. But
Yeah, I kind of concur with Councilman Vera. While I generally not showing up to hearings weighs heavy on my soul, but on this particular issue, if they feel like they had a legal case that precluded them or made that point unnecessary, and I think that maybe right now it's maybe premature to close the doors on both options. So I think I would prefer to see that other door continue to be open as the one case moves forward. If we were to defer this back to the board, I think it gives them ample opportunity to go up or down on both ones, but they have both bites of those apples. Councilman Miranda.
I can just say this is not Washington D.C., this is Tampa, Florida, and the judge said here what he wants. That's all. I mean, whatever happened in the VRB or didn't happen, that's between them and them. But I'm not part of that. I'm not part of the judge either, so I'm caught in the middle. So unless they want to, I'm fine with what the motion, the first motion was to deny so they can do something and move forward. Further litigation is needed. That's what the judge said, not me. That's what the judge said, and it hasn't been done. And I admire everybody here. I admire the people that showed up at the hearing. I admire the petitioner. I admire certainly the individual representing the conflict that they have between each other, between them and them. But the party that's in settlement to do this said warranting further litigation. I'm not a litigator. I'm not a judge. That belongs in the court, not here.
Okay, roll call vote, please. Councilman Vera. Councilman Carlson.
No, I also want to say, I think that although it would be better probably from the neighbor's point of view to try to kill it right now, I think that will lead to further litigation that will drag this out, and there'll be more meetings to go to. I think it's cleaner from a process point of view to have the VRB deny it and then see where it goes from there. What happens in litigation is that I'm talking generically, is that the city typically will negotiate, and then the neighbors aren't happy and the developers aren't happy, and so having a clean process is easier than dealing with litigation.
I have a question, if I may.
Vera.
And this is a question on the motion to Mr. Shelby, which is it being predicated on an apparent non-attendance at the underlying hearing. And by the way, this is nothing on Councilwoman Hurtak, who makes a lot of these motions that some of us don't want to make and always does a stellar job on, so it's nothing on that. But is that a rationale that can be relied upon from a legal perspective to deny this?
Procedurally?
Yes, sir.
My understanding is, and you've been advised by the city attorney's office, that the answer to that is yes.
Okay. Curiosity. Thank you, sir.
So I mean, I will happily add in that it is part of the VRB's rules and procedures that were effective. They're not old, effective September 10th of 2024. Section 4.10 continuances. If the applicant fails to appear at the scheduled public meeting, the applicant shall be continued for 60 days. And I did not read all of this, so.
Take your time.
If you do have a question that would be able to be answered, evidentiary perspective, you do have that ability to reopen the hearing if you feel the need.
No, I'm right here. I've got it. I knew I'd seen it. It is actually 7.1, appearance by the applicant. The applicant or authorized agent shall appear in support of the application at the public hearing. If the applicant or authorized agent fails to appear, the application shall be continued for 60 days. If the applicant or authorized agent fails to appear at the second hearing, the application shall be denied. It's very simple language.
Okay, and Councilman Maniscalco, you'll accept that part of her motion? Okay, so we have a motion from Councilwoman Hurtak, a second from Councilman Maniscalco with the additional information. Roll call, please.
Young,
Yes.
Vieira,
No.
Carlson, Miranda, Maniscalco,
Yes.
Hurtak,
Yes.
and Clendenin.
No.
Motion carried with Vieira, Carlson, and Clendenin voting no.
Okay, thank you. Very good. Okay. Well, that was an interesting one. Ordinance presented for first reading consideration, item number 103. That's the first for me. Mr. Brody?
Good afternoon, Carl Brody, Legal Department. I am here today on item 103, bringing back the proposed Veterans Affairs Committee ordinance. Last meeting, we talked about what the responsibilities of it would be, and I think there was agreement that there was a value there, but there was a decision we wanted to change up the makeup of the committee. And what we did was we went back, we reduced the number to 11 members, chosen 1 from each council person and 4 from the mayor, and we required that at least 75% of the members of the committee would be veterans. And we also reduced eligibility to just either veterans or Gold Star family members. So those are the changes that we made at your request and upon discussion with members. And we just are available for any questions you might have regarding this ordinance.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, whenever.
Councilman Vera.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Brody, thank you very much for this. We really appreciate your hard work on this. So to be clear, it's 75% of the committee has to be veterans, but the other 25%, in terms of non-veterans, are Gold Star family members.
Correct.
Okay, good. Yeah, because that was something that was brought up in the first part and the first time we heard this, and that's very reasonable. I have no objection to that, obviously. So, no, just again, thank you for your hard work. And I envision this being a board here for our city of Tampa that takes the lead on a lot of our patriotic ceremonies, things that in the past I think we used to defer to the county on, things for like Memorial Day, Veterans Day, Purple Heart Day, things like that. And it recognizes the fact that our city of Tampa, we're a very, very patriotic city. We love our country, all of us, whether we're Republicans or Democrats or independents. And that's something that, we got our 250-year anniversary as the United States coming up. For me, as I see it, very difficult times in our country right now. A lot of things happening that break my heart on American issues. But regardless of how we feel about those issues, what's right with America helps heal what's wrong with America. And one of the things that's right with America is our veterans. And those are things that Tampa celebrates. So I think this is a wonderful thing. And I look forward to seeing who council members pick. We have a lot of good folks here, and who the mayor picks and everything. But again, Carl, you're always a pleasure to work with, man, as an attorney. So I appreciate you.
Thank you. Councilman Vieira, would you like to read the substitute?
Yes, sir. It is. I read an ordinance of the City of Tampa, Florida, amending Chapter 2, Article 6, the City of Tampa Code by adding Section 2-326 definitions, Section 2-327 Veterans Advisory Committee, Section 2-328 meetings, Section 2-329 purpose and function, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
We have a motion from Councilman Vieira, second from Councilman Maniscalco. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Councilman Miranda. I don't know. I am brain dead. My brain is mush today. I did not sleep last night. And that was unanimous?
Motion carried unanimously. Second reading and adoption will be held on June 4th, 2026 at 10:00 a.m. in City Council Chambers, 315 East Kennedy Boulevard, 3rd floor, Tampa, Florida, 33602.
And you'll have to send you back to Law School 101 for those Roman numerals that.
I know. I was like,
Don't you learn that like the first hour?
Oh, I learned that through Rocky movies.
There you go. Okay, very good. Number 104, please. Brandon, good to see you.
Good afternoon, Council. Emma Gregory, Legal Department, and Brendan Campbell, Mobility Director, and Adam Purcell from the Mobility Department are here with me. We're here for item number 104, which is an amendment to section 22-103, which is also known as the Sidewalk in Lieu Fee Ordinance. Council made a motion on March 26th asking city staff to work with the neighborhood to come up with a set of criteria that would allow the city some flexibility in certain circumstances. So that is what is, that's what's before you today. So this proposed ordinance eliminates the so-called sidewalk to nowhere exemption, which is the existing section 22-103C1. And it also creates a new criterion for findings of impracticability, which allows applicants to pay into the sidewalk in lieu fee. So we believe this fulfills the spirit of council's motion. So in a property in a defined residential neighborhood where there's no existing commercial use, no existing schools or churches, and no existing sidewalks, and construction would negatively impact the quality of the neighborhood, these applicants could now pay into the sidewalk in lieu fee. So we are asking for your consideration and approval of this on first reading today.
Thank you. Any questions?
None.
Okay. I believe now we go to public comment. So if anybody would like to speak to this, please come up. Just start with your name.
Ansley.
You'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Ansley Voss. I'm a South Tampa resident. I just wanted to extend my gratitude, thanking the council and the city attorney for taking the time to create a thoughtful exception through this addition of item number 4, where it simply makes good sense. We appreciate the time, consideration, professionalism that went into this process, and we are grateful for your support in helping preserve the integrity and character of South Tampa neighborhoods while allowing for practical solutions where appropriate. Thank you so much for your leadership. Thank you for your consideration and your support.
Thank you so much. Next.
Hello, City Council. Good afternoon, Paula Flores. I am a resident and walking member of our community here in Tampa. I'm also a member of Walk by Tampa, and we hope we have considered our letter of support urging approval of the amended city sidewalk ordinance agenda item 104 attached to today's agenda. What I see in our neighborhoods is concerning. Missing sidewalks, inadequate crossings, moms pushing strollers, and so forth. These are the everyday realities across Tampa. And they are part of why our region continues to be one of the deadliest in the nation for people walking in our community. But we're not going to get off this list until we move forward, and we accept this amendment to make a difference in our community. We know we recognize that at times we have to make some concessions, maybe necessary, to move forward and paddle forward. But while we believe sidewalks should be built whenever possible, we support the exemptions listed in the amended ordinance, as long as payment in lieu of construction is a requirement, no exceptions there. Because as you know, the city has 1,200 miles of sidewalk gaps, and every penny moving forward to another location, we're going to support. We trust City Council will consider not only the voices in this room today, but also the many residents who depend on safer streets every day to walk to school, to work, to the park, and cannot be here to speak. So please vote yes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Carol Ann Bennett. I'm here to support this code change. Walk Bike Tampa, sidewalk stompers in many neighborhoods like McFarland Park fought for years to get the code changed and the fees raised. We tried to eliminate the exemption for no connecting sidewalk, but we're told the exemptions would be rarely granted and flexibility was needed. That didn't happen. That excuse was approved more than the other three combined. And to make it worse, they made mistakes and approved them even when there was a sidewalk next door. If the code had been administered correctly, we wouldn't be here today. Those mistakes are why the motion was made to remove the exemption. We wanted it eliminated, but we're willing to support this compromise as long as the fee stays mandatory. Mobility uses those fees to build sidewalks around schools. They prioritize schools that have a lot of children who are forced to walk in the street, sometimes in the dark, because their parents don't have the luxury of driving their children to school, even though it is unsafe to walk. Schools like Sulphur Springs, where children have no buses, few sidewalks, and the new builds have not been made to install sidewalks. Y'all are going to be voting on a plan for them. When Virginia Parks, dang it, I left it at the seat. Oh well, just imagine a map I'm going to show you. When Virginia Park's 100-year-old pipes were replaced, the city was going to fill in many sidewalk gaps with money from the All for Transportation tax. When that funding was lost, the sidewalks were canceled. Here is the map. More than half of those houses were new builds and should have had sidewalks. If the city had made them build sidewalks as they should, the cost would have been way, way less, and the city might have had the money to go ahead with the project and fill the few gaps. That is the city's decades-long big picture plan for filling sidewalk gaps. But so many houses were granted exemption, it doubled the gaps, and many didn't even pay a fee. So the city kind of shot itself in the foot and sabotaged its own plan. They failed us with a lack of follow-through. Tampa is excellent at killing and injuring its pedestrians and cyclists. People aren't being mowed down on sidewalks. We need leadership that will act in the best interest of the whole population. We need these fees to protect our most vulnerable people. We fought very hard for this progress. I believe that this amendment is appropriate and it won't hamper our progress, but we don't want to go backwards. So please vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolina. Anybody else in the public wish to speak? Second. A motion to close, Councilman Maniscalco, second from Councilman Miranda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to the folks in the community. This is something that we in council have been working with the community on for a long, long time, as Carol Ann mentioned. And government is supposed to be responsive to people, and everything. In going through that process, democracy takes a long time, and the process modified it slightly along the way. But today we don't have any opposition, and I hope we don't have to strengthen it again. But the ultimate problem is the ultimate challenge is to keep people safe, as folks said. On my own street, we don't even have sidewalks, I think, in a third of the houses, and there are folks in wheelchairs that are going down the middle of my street. And we see that replicated all over the city, and we've got to fix that problem. It's too dangerous to have kids and people in wheelchairs, joggers with their iPods in their ears, AirPods, sorry, and we need to make the city safer. So thank you to everybody for their help on this.
Thank you, Councilman Miranda.
Just to echo what Councilman Carlson said, thanks to the neighborhood for stepping up, and when you look around what they have houses and good neighbors. They don't have no businesses, they don't have no churches, they don't have anything other than a good life. When you have people that speak with each other, it's better to live there than anywhere else in the world, because we lost that art in America about speaking and looking at somebody in the face and just having a standard conversation. So I want to thank you all for doing that.
Councilwoman Hurtak.
I want to thank everyone. I was thrilled when we fought hard to get the fee increased, and this was the second part of this. And I'm glad we could work together to find a solution that it works for everyone. And that's really what this is all about. So thank you so much. Very excited.
Thank you, Councilman Bureau.
Thank you very much. I had to take a call over there for something with the city. I apologize. When I saw, because I was talking and seeing, and I ran back in here. Obviously, I would have voted yes on this. Looking forward to voting for second reading. Sometimes you get calls on things for the city. And
We haven't voted yet.
I'll be damned. Okay, there you go. Okay. Well, look forward to voting yes. Okay. Hey, that's funny. Okay, good. Okay. There you
Oh,
go.
my word.
It was a political.
Okay. Hearing I thought I missed it.
I'd like to move an ordinance being presented for first reading consideration, ordinance of the City of Tampa, Florida, amending the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances, Chapter 22, Article 1, Division 3, Subdivision 3, Section 22-103, when new sidewalk construction is required, contributions to Sidewalk Trust Fund in lieu of constructing a sidewalk, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
We have a motion from Councilman Maniscalco. We have a second from Councilman Miranda. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Motion carried unanimously. Second reading and adoption will be held on June 4th, 2026 at 10 o'clock a.m. in City Council Chambers, 315 East Kennedy Boulevard, 3rd floor, Tampa, Florida, 33602.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
You're out of order. Congratulations, Brandon, and all the staff that was a part of this thing. Oh, yeah. Item 105.
Good afternoon, City Council. Carl Brody, Legal Department. And I have with me the Director of the Equal Business Opportunity Department, Ms. Bertha Mitchell.
Good afternoon, Council.
Introduce your staff.
Yes, I would love to introduce our amazing Equal Business Opportunity, Mr. Ardale Allen. He's our certification expert, new certification. Miss Lita Perez, she is our outreach specialist, amazing. Mr. Sajan Patel, producing amazing reports. Check out our website, it is amazing. We have Miss Caitlin Dorsback. She is our, also our reporting expert, and she's conducting on-site visits to make sure prime and subcontractors are getting along. And we have Miss Loretta Brown, who does our contract compliance to ensure that our subcontractors and certified firms are paid expeditiously. Amazing team. Thank you. I couldn't do what we do without them. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Item 105. This is an ordinance we're bringing before City Council. It's not because we want to bring this. This is not the ordinance we wanted you to have to review and approve. This is one we have to get reviewed and approved because of the change in law that we've run into. So let me go through quickly what changes are precipitating this. In January of 2025, the new Trump administration issued Executive Order 14-173, and that specifically prohibited grantees and contractors from using any or practicing any DEI programs. Wasn't greatly defined, but it was broadly defined enough that it included any program that would provide a special benefit based on what previously were considered protected classes, race, gender, ethnicity. To clarify that, in July of 2025, the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, issued a memorandum warning all of the contractors and grantees of federal funds that any use of DEI by their organizations would result in them losing those grants, or if they signed off on a grant knowing that they had a program that might be subject to a DEI type interpretation, that they would be subject to potential False Claim Act claims, which is a federal violation and brings its own separate penalties, including 3 times damages. So in the event that we had a federal grant that was $1 million, the potential penalty to the city would be $3 million. That was the suggestion or result of the Bondi memo that we're concerned with. Now, we also have in January, actually January 19th, 2026, this year, the Attorney General of the state of Florida issued a memo noting that any state statute or any city statute or any county statute that provided any kind of DEI, again, generally termed, that would provide a benefit based on protected class, gender, race, ethnicity, would not be supported by the state, and any challenge the state would support the challenger. And to make it more difficult for us to be able to maintain a program like the EBO program, the state more recently, just this month ago, passed its new law, Section 166.04971, which also prohibited any city, any county from being involved promoting any activities that reference race, ethnicity, gender. What concerns us with that one, this most recent primarily, is that the penalty for a violation of that is directly focused on city councils and county commissions. If it's determined that a violation of one of these provisions is violated, the penalty would be malfeasance. And the outcome of a malfeasance penalty is a removal from office. So that was a big concern for us with the new law that came from the state. And also it gave or gives any resident of the city or this county or the state standing to be able to bring a case challenging any of our programs that might provide some DEI-related benefit. Again, it's not, the terms aren't strictly defined, which is what makes it more difficult for us from a legal position to be able to defend. What does occur from just a broad interpretation is that it chills some of our ability to operate programs that we'd like to operate. But it's necessary for us to do that in order to protect the city, to protect you, City Council, and to protect our overall program. Because what we don't want to do is have somebody challenge our program, have it be found to be in violation of any of these laws, and resulting in us actually closing the program for an extended period of time until we can do what we're doing now, which is reconstitute it. And also, we want to protect the city against losing millions of dollars in grants, millions of dollars in contracts that we get from the federal government. We do know that there is a lot of activity out there by private organizations that do their own kind of audits to determine if local governments and state governments continue to operate any type of programs like this. So we know that there are groups out there looking for this. We know that the federal government now has a wing of its Department of Justice that's looking to see if any local state governments are involved or continue to have programs that provide any kind of DEI-related benefit. So it's our best advice to the EBO and to you also that we amend our ordinance. We amend it to make it race neutral. That should protect us against any challenges. And that's what we have today for you to consider.
Thank you, Carl.
Yes, sir. I would like to thank council for taking swift action and reconvening the Equal Business Opportunity Advisory Committee. They reconvened in June 2025, and the official suspension of the program was September 5th of 2025. That group met every single month, sometimes twice a month. They are business owners and professionals who took time away from their business and their profession for this cause. I would like to thank them publicly for their dedication and their effort, and again, for you reconvening the EBOAC. And I definitely, again, thank my team. We all spent countless hours reviewing this ordinance to make sure that it is indeed race and gender neutral and satisfies these many, many directives that were directed to us. So we are very confident, and we would like to rename the department to Strategic Business Development
which is what we do. We will continue to look for opportunities for especially our small local business community, and to include all ethnic groups. But primarily, the focus will be on small local businesses. I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
We have no doubt that you will continue to carry out the values of the city of Tampa.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to just go through some of the changes just to illustrate how we are making the best out of what we can.
Okay, do you need to for the record?
Because we've
No,
shared
I don't
it
need it
with
for the
them.
record if you have questions.
I think we're good.
Okay.
And we all got briefed out. We got all the background
You've
stuff.
been briefed.
So Councilman Miranda, would you like to read this one?
And may I, and after Councilwoman Hurd?
Yeah.
So, are there any municipalities in this state that are fighting this?
I'm not aware off the top of my head, but I do know, and I've heard from other municipalities, and I've talked to several of the different legal offices across the state. Most of them are doing away with their programs or suspending them completely until they get a final determination, which is probably not going to happen for another 3 years. So most of them are doing away with it. From the feedback I've gotten, we're more aggressive in terms of trying to maintain our program to the extent that we're going to continue to try to provide what the intent of it is without violating law.
Councilwoman Young.
No, I would just want to say I appreciate you all for doing the work. I know we've met a few times and kind of went over everything. I think just me personally, I think it's a shame that we even have to do this. And I know that you all put a lot of work into just making sure that we can continue to have the program. But it's no secret that what is happening, I think it's ridiculous. But I appreciate you all for still, making sure that our small and local businesses are going to have the opportunities to participate, in business that comes into the city. And I would hope that as a city, even though we cannot, direct our attention to minority or women-owned businesses, that we will make sure that we do our job, because we live in a city that is extremely diverse. And it would be, I think, a crime to not acknowledge that. So I appreciate you all for the work that you've done.
We're still Tampa.
Yes. And lastly, if I may thank some amazing colleagues, two especially, Mr. Richard Mutterback of Contract Administration and Deanna Faggart of the Purchasing Department. They were amazing. So thank you.
Councilman Briere, followed by Carlson.
Thank you very much, and I'll echo what Councilwoman Young said. First off, before I make some very brief remarks on this, because I've talked to you all about my thoughts, I just want to say that everybody here, all of y'all that stood up, God bless you guys. You guys are fighting a good fight. There's that song, if you're not with the one you love the one you're with, and right now we're loving the one we're with, and we're making the best of it, what we can. But I want to acknowledge how up is down and down is up, and these new rules that we're living under, right, that make no sense. They defy moral gravity and they defy our history, okay? If you just look at just cursory 30 seconds, right? Just basic review of history from 1619 to the start of our country, 150 years of slavery. Start of a country to Civil War, 90 years of slavery. At the beginning of the Civil War, 50% of Florida was enslaved. 11 years of Reconstruction, 90 years of Jim Crow, during which time 6 million African Americans fled the South to go up north in the Great Migration. And I was born 11 years after the formal end of Jim Crow, and we're being told right now that not just can we not talk about the effects that brutal history of torture and immorality has on people today, but we can't talk about its present effects, and governments can't take action, and that the 14th Amendment is being used to essentially turn itself on its head. Man, that's crazy. I understand. I'm going to vote for this because we have to do what we have to do. Yes, but I think we have to acknowledge the upside down gravity that we're living in this country, and how since January of 2025, the things that people used to whisper and talk in hushed corners, they are yelling, often coming from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and we got to stand up to it because it is immoral. It is immoral. That's all. Again, I'll vote for this because we're not going to give up highway money and all that kind of good stuff, but you know what? We ought to acknowledge the immoral universe that we're living in, which is going to be time limited, God willing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Miranda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be honored to file number 105. file number
Can I say
2026-H,
something first?
chapter 26.5, an order being presented for first reading consideration. An ordinance in the city of Tampa, Florida, deleting in its entirety the city of Tampa Code of Ordinances, Articles 1, 2, and 3 of chapter 26.5, Equal Business Opportunity Program, adopting revised Articles 1, 2, and 3 of chapter 26.5, renaming the Equal Business Opportunity Strategic Business Development, providing for severability, providing an effective date. I want to thank all of you here and those that have worked behind the scenes to make America beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a motion from Councilman Miranda, second from Councilman Maniscalco. Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, just to talk philosophically for a second. I know there are a lot of people frustrated that we would look at changing this at all. And as the attorneys have said, we've pushed back in many different ways. Unfortunately, we're a subset of the state and federal government, and we have to do what they say. And if you want to help us change that, get different people elected in those seats so we can change that. But one opportunity, I think, is that when I talk to small businesses or minority women-owned businesses, what they want most of all is a seat at the table. Too often, cities, and Tampa in particular, has had silos where if you're not a part of the clique, you can't get in. There are still groups in Tampa where you have to pay $50,000 to join, but you have to be asked to join, and you can't join otherwise. And if the big businesses that could support these businesses have a wall around them, then it's not possible for everybody to participate. And we need more cross-pollination of ideas. And why is this important? It's not a philosophical issue, it's an economic issue. If the best way to build intergenerational wealth is by people building up their own businesses or people working in entrepreneurial businesses and getting shares. What made America great is the entrepreneurs that have driven our economy, and then the majority of jobs in our country are by small businesses. We need to do everything we can to grow them. But an example, there are already many, if you take black-owned businesses, for example, there's the CDC, the Black Chamber, TOBA, a bunch of other groups that have access to black-owned businesses, and there are groups of women-owned businesses and Hispanic-owned businesses and others. Just as you all would reach out to the South Tampa Chamber, reach out to the Black Chamber, reach out to TOBA, reach out to all these groups, because they have groups of business people who are hungry to build business. And I just have to say, I'm so impressed and inspired by entrepreneurs. I was with a group of black-owned business leaders recently, and you know, one of the startup businesses that you do when you're just starting out is maybe doing janitorial services. And there was a lady in the room who had done such a good job getting referrals that she is now started a referral service to feed other janitorial businesses. And in the room, there were 3 who were getting fed by her. And the thing to me is just that, you know, the human mind, the American mind, the way we're raised, it creates this creativity and drive to succeed. And people, if given the opportunity of having the right doors open, not giving special treatment, but having the right doors open, people can innovate, and everybody has a chance to really succeed and make this a great country. So thank you all for carrying this forward, and let us know if we can help create a seat at the table for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. We're also missing Jose Valdez, and to your point, he's conducting sheltered market committee meetings and goal-setting committee meetings, which we invite to the public. We send out that invitation through the city clerk's office, and all of the public is invited to attend.
Thank you. I have a motion. I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay, I can't do it.
No, I understand.
Motion carried with Hurtak voting no. Second reading and adoption will be held on June 4th, 2026 at 10 o'clock a.m. in City Council Chambers, 315 East Kennedy Boulevard, 3rd floor, Tampa, Florida, 33602.
Thank you. We are now at item 39, which was pulled from the consent agenda. 39.
Yes, so I wanted to talk about this. This is a $150,000 financial resolution to go to the Hannah City Center. And so, I mean, we've given Hannah $120 million. In all of this, we should have had enough money to build out everything. So can you talk to us about why we need $150 more million for a brand new building? No, it's 150 because they asked for 50 and now they're asking for 100 more.
Mike Perry, DCFO. You're correct. In the 2026 budget, Brenda here asked for $50,000 to build out the shell for workforce development. I'm going to let her talk about the programmatic outcomes. She went and got her bids, and now the cost is $150,000. You're right, there is $1.3 million in the available balance of the project. However, that money is being reserved for the build-out of the cafe. And until we go ahead and figure out what we're going to do with the cafe, we want to keep those funds restricted. And that's why we went ahead and provide supplemental funding for Brenda's project.
So we do not have a plan for that cafe yet.
I think they're working on it, but I'm not in day-to-day operations. Do you know what's happening to the cafe?
They're working on a plan, Adri's team.
I would really rather take this money from that plan because we've been hearing this since before Hannah got started. I'm surprised that we don't have a build out for a facility that we were told was going to be completed with the over 140, what are we up to now? $1 million for this building.
It's about 120, ma'am.
120.
It's about 240 when you include
Yeah.
O&M and interest over 30 years.
But the point being that if we have this $1.3 million for this cafe we keep hearing about over and over again, until we actually do that, the best thing to do is use that money. So that's going to be my request, is that we take that money from the 1.3 million that we've already allocated to this project to finish anything we need to finish. I think it's a great program. I think we need it. I think we need to use the money we already have to do that.
Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, and in the very beginning, City Council requested that there be co-work space there so we can mobilize that. And then the administration, because they don't like to listen to City Council's ideas, said, okay, we're going to make a cafe about it or whatever. But this process has gone way over. The building went way over budget. It was way beyond the original specs, and it's not being managed correctly. If 40% or whatever is empty, and the staff doesn't even know what it means to sublease and hasn't had any plan for subleasing, that really concerns me. The other thing is, I've asked several times, I think we as council voted several times to find out what the current commercial valuation of it is, because we need that for insurance purposes, but I'm pretty certain that it's not even close to what it is. I think what we're gonna need to do is put this building on the market and let the market decide how much it's really worth, and if we're upside down, we need to figure out what that means. It was a horrible business decision. Contrast what they did at the airport. They partnered with the private sector. They built a building, and they had an option to buy it. The building went way up beyond the original estimations of what it might be worth, and it's profitable. So they used the option to buy it back so they can make a profit on it. Look at what the county did with County Center in buying their building. This building was a complete waste of money. It was a bad decision. The building across the street sold for less than this building cost to build during the process that this was being planned. And we need professionalism in this city, and we need this administration to start being responsible as taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Miranda.
No, I'm sorry.
So
Councilwoman Hurta.
my motion is going to be to return this with the money coming out of that 1.3 for the cafe. This is a project that needs to happen. We agree on that. But since we keep hearing about something that's not happened yet, and if that cafe comes back, we can find other funding. But right now, I want a resolution a financial resolution to come back using the 1.3 to fund this program.
If I'm not mistaken, because the mid-year budgets have to originate from the administration, our choice would be to vote this down with the advice to come back.
I'm simply asking
Yeah.
for them to look at it and for the possibility of coming back. When they come back, if they can't do it, they'll let us know. Or if it's not possible, you can reach out to my office. But my motion is to bring it back with the money coming from.
So there'd be a motion to continue
It's
this
a mo-
item?
Yes.
It's a motion to continue with the direction to amend the source of the funding.
Yes. Recommend, yeah.
Okay, do you have a date?
Our next available really is June 4th.
Give them time, you want to clear that with, I'm sorry to interrupt, forgive me.
June 4th is the next one and it still would be I took it off the consent agenda, so it still could be a consent item. Yeah. I just disagree with how this is funded.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to continue item number 39 to June 4th with the advice to the administration to reappropriate the money out of the existing funds set aside from HANA as opposed to general fund money. Is there any further discussion?
I'm sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Brenda McKenzie, Workforce Partnerships with the city. I just wanted to make sure council was aware there are some time sensitivities. This is a co-working space for nonprofit units that we're trying to get off the ground to supplement our young people and getting them connected to careers. We're hoping that this will be open in the fall, and so we do have some time constraints to get this contracted and built out in time.
Is there an earlier date that they could bring it on a consent agenda?
No, because the next council meeting, they have to have it in by tomorrow.
Are you able to do an appropriations change between now and tomorrow for this resolution?
If we can make the May 21st meeting, we'll
Okay,
try for it.
then yeah, if you can make May 21st, if not, June 4th. It's a very important thing. We don't want to stop it, but we need that money elsewhere.
Okay, understanding the time parameters and that the staff will be able to do this in for the submission tomorrow. The amendment is for May 21st to bring this back, a continuation of item 39 to May 21st. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Now, was that the motion to amend?
No motion, it was,
It was just amended.
no, it was just, it was,
I accepted the amendment.
yeah, friendly amendment.
That's fine, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so now we are moving to staff reports. We have 113, okay. Somewhere in the stack of papers, I have it. Okay, 113.
I had wanted to brief council on this. Let me, if I may, pass out some documents for y'all. Here you go, Bill, and then if you don't mind passing it down.
Do you have enough for the clerk and me?
Just give it whenever you're done with it or whatever, it's all good. Yeah, so I asked, Mr. Brody didn't need to come here for this, so I wanted to brief council on what I'm trying to do with this, which is my proposal that I started talking about with Local 754 and the Police Benevolent Association of Tampa was to have a mandatory review for a public safety master plan. We would eventually come down with the advice of Chief Tripp, I believe it was in the meeting wisely, to looking at doing it every 3 years. Every year would be very onerous and burdensome and not reasonably related to get anything really, really done. And my thing is, I don't care if we do it via charter amendment or ordinance or whatever, so long as it gets done. And so we're working on something that I feel very, very strongly about, that I know that this council feels very strongly about. The main issue is one of transparency, which is that citizens in Tampa and similarly situated cities, they should be doing this all across the state of Florida, should have reviews of what our public safety deficits are with regards to cops on the streets, number of firefighters that we have, infrastructure, new fire stations, how our fire stations are doing, and how much it would cost to remedy that. People should know that while we make decisions on different things involving other areas of our budget. I'll be talking about during motion time a big issue with New Tampa and 33647, something that folks there are very acutely aware of. So really it's one of accountability for everybody, for all 7 of us, for the executive, for everybody. So, you know, I could go over the history of the Public Safety Master Plan. I think I first proposed that in 2020. Then the administration, I think, funded it just under the threshold that City Council would need to approve it. We found out about it, I think, in 2023. We funded another $50,000 for an updated one, which I don't believe was ever done. So I'm frankly just taking this route so that we can have one done mandatory. So what this compromise would do, council, is the mayor would do an executive order that would come from the mayor's office, obviously, detailing a mandatory 3-year public safety master plan. We're going right now with myself, the 2 public safety unions, police and fire, and the mayor's office on negotiated language for that. City council would concurrently pass with that an ordinance mandating that any modification by any future mayor of any kind to this executive order would require notice, proper notice, and we would go into what notice is on council, and then we would also pass a resolution of that. So right now, we're still negotiating what the executive order would say, and 754 has given their suggestions. So my motion is, and I think I had June 17th picked out, which I think is open. I spoke with Mr. Carl Brody, who's been doing a great job on this, like always, and I'm sorry, it's June 18th, is to continue this to June 18th and to have, we can invite Mr. Brody to come. We can invite, to the extent that they wish to come, police, fire, as well as the associated unions to talk about the progress on this. I feel very confident that by this time we can get on language. That's the gist of it.
Okay. I have a motion to continue item 114 to June 18th. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second from Councilman Carlson. Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, my only request is that you talked about it being executive order with a resolution. I think it should be an ordinance, or I think that the council document should supersede the executive order, and the executive order could confirm it, but not, sometimes we codify an executive order, but I think it ought to originate at city council, because then it looks more representative. It doesn't look political.
And may I, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yes, so I agree. My big thing is, however, I just want to get it done. And I hear you on your sentiments on the procedural issues, et cetera. We are actually going to pass an ordinance for it, but again, this is something I'm trying to do in a collaborative way. I totally understand those sentiments. I'm very sympathetic to them, but my larger thing is just to get this done. I got 6 months on here. I've been trying to get this damn thing passed for 6 years. You know what I mean, one way or another. And this is a different path by which I'm doing it to make sure that it gets done. Frankly, it should be done in every city in the state of Florida, over 100,000 people. That's my opinion, but I'm sympathetic
something you
to
can
that.
do when you get to Tallahassee.
Oh, that was a hint, I know.
Okay, I have a motion. I have a second. Councilwoman Hurtak.
Well, think about this before you go to Tallahassee, and this is going to be my concern, and I want you to really consider it. This is right now an unfunded mandate.
I know.
So to really make it fruitful, you got to have some funds.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
So,
Yep. Sensitive to
so
that.
not only, so that needs to be somewhere in this language about dedicated funding, whatever that funding might be. And don't you dare go up to Tallahassee making a bunch of unfunded mandate laws.
Well, he'll fit right in.
Yeah, you will fit right in, but we need change. So yeah, that's my big concern is where, what does that look like to you? Obviously, the first one will be a big lift, but ideally, if you're doing these over time, the lift will be much smaller. But we still want to make sure, sort of like when we did the Charter Review Commission and we made sure we put funding in there for it.
Yep.
I just want you to think about it.
Yes.
I support this, but I really want to make sure that a future administration can't say, well, we don't have the money to do this.
And may I respond to that briefly?
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is, remember we did the parks, and this is before you got on, Councilwoman Hurtak, we did the parks master plan. It is a vision of what each district needs to have equity on parks. This would be a vision or a pathway on what we need to have equity on public safety. It's not a mandate to spend it, but I say that so that we can have transparency so that the public can know what we're missing.
So we're kind of spiraling.
But the mandate isn't.
We're spiraling into the issues. This
Yeah.
This is about
Okay.
continuing this item to June 18th, and it's already almost 4 o'clock, and we've still got a couple of media items in front of us.
But I'm not allowed to talk to him otherwise. I'm hearing him say that it's a mandate to do the work. No, I'm saying a mandate to pay for the plan.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about doing the work, which is important.
Yes,
That's the plan.
Guess who holds that budget here shortly? Okay, so very good. So I have a motion, I have a second to continue this to June 18th. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, item number 115. Can we open 115 and 116 together? You want to do them both together?
Yep.
Yeah, let's do both together.
Well, do they need to be open?
The action plan and the budget. Okay.
Good afternoon, Council. Jerry Lopez, Deputy Administrator for Development and Economic Opportunity. We're really excited to be here today to present a brief summary of our final report for the Sulphur Springs Neighborhood Action Plan. We began this process in December of '24, and our internal working groups, all of our departments, along with the community, with a lot of neighborhood outreach, have put a lot of work into this. So I'd like to introduce Lauren Vasquez from our City Planning Department, who has been the lead on this effort, to present the plan. Lauren?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Council.
Good afternoon.
All right, Lauren Vasquez, City Planning Department. So I'm just going to quickly, the first presentation is on the final plan. This one will go by quick, and then our next presentation is going to be on that catalytic project identification. So like I said, this presentation is on presenting the final plan, which can be found on our project website, tampa.gov/Sulphur Springs. And we have presented to you on this plan twice before, last time in October, so this slide may look familiar to you. We began this project in December 2024, and we wrapped it up in February of this year. And what this presentation is going to focus on is our phase 3 engagement and those results, as well as the format and recommendations of the final plan. So as we did for the the first 2 phases of the plan, phase 3 also had an online survey. This online survey was very brief. It was only 5 questions. We really wanted to keep it focused on validating that we were reflecting recommendations, that reflected what the community had told us, and we were also looking forward to implementation next steps. And so as you can see, there's just a sampling of results on the slide. We asked people to indicate, which of the priority action areas were important to them, and also how they wanted to get involved in the implementation of the plan. And as you can see, there was broad support for the recommendations, and there was a lot of variety and interest in getting involved in those next steps. So that felt validating for us being able to reflect what we were hearing. We also went ahead and also hosted a phase 3 workshop as well. This again focused on getting feedback on those final recommendations of the plan. And actually at this meeting, I think one of the key parts of it was that we were able to do almost an hour of Q&A with the attendees, which I felt was very helpful to establish a dialogue between us and the residents to hear their feedback very clearly, and for staff to be able to provide clarity and just information on how we're going to be moving this plan forward. So the report is organized into 4 sections. The first section really being that existing conditions and literature review. The second section being the community engagement results and how we formed the vision and the principles of how the plan was put together. And then the bulk of the plan is the playbook action areas. And those are the top 10 priority areas that we heard as part of the plan. That's where all of our recommendations are. And then certainly last but not least are the community-led actions. We wanted this to be a guidebook not only for what the city is doing moving forward in Sulphur Springs, but also a guidebook that the community could use to move forward and do some community-led change. So again, this slide should look familiar to you. This was presented in October last year when we did our phase 2 presentation. This highlights the first 5 of those priority action areas. The first one being about providing support for those community-led recommendations, creating public-private partnerships to increase our capacity of what we're able to do in the neighborhood, providing more opportunities for affordable renter and ownership opportunities, redeveloping vacant and distressed areas of the neighborhood as identified as one of the top priorities by the residents, and of course ensuring that there is access to fresh food, which currently is an issue in the neighborhood. On the second slide, this is a little bit different than what we showed you in October. We got some clear feedback from council that you all felt that we should really be highlighting more economic and workforce development activities. At that time, those recommendations were in the plan. There was actually a 5th section of the plan just called Other Recommendations. But upon further reflection and hearing council feedback and hearing community feedback, we felt that it was better for us to be more clear and efficient in what we're recommending. So what we did, as opposed to having those other recommendations, we looked at where can we be more concise and clear with what we're saying. So there used to be 2 mobility related priority action areas. One was related to safe streets for all. One was related to connectivity. And what we did is combine those 2 areas, but we didn't lose anything from those recommendations. So instead of having one recommendation that said close sidewalk gaps and a totally different recommendation that said make sure that the sidewalks are shaded and comfortable, now the recommendations are more clear to the point, reflecting our principles of having complete streets. And so the recommendation would instead be have comfortable connected sidewalks to get you to places in the neighborhood. By being more efficient in our language in that way, we were able to add economic and workforce development as a priority action area and really highlight those key recommendations that we were making. Also on the side, of course, we have making the access to the many parks in the neighborhood better, enhancing neighborhood character, and promoting public safety. So under each of the priority action areas, there is a varied number of recommendations, but the recommendations are all written to be action-oriented. So it's not just about encourage or promote, it's do this, right? Because we want this to be an action plan. Each of these actions are assigned either primary, secondary, or long-term, and we chose that language specifically so that it wasn't, you know, oftentimes in plans you'll have short-term means 0 to 6 months. We recognize we're not going to be able to do everything within a 6-month time span, within a 1-year time span, but we wanted to be really clear on these are the actions that should be taken first to set a foundation for the neighborhood and what is coming forward for the neighborhood. In addition to that, we wanted to make sure that we had a way to measure our success of implementation. So each of the actions also has a set of metrics that lets us know, okay, how successful have we been in implementing this? An example of that would be how many homeownership workshops have been held in Sulphur Springs. In addition to the recommendations, each of the playbook action areas also has these supporting materials such as a case study and visualizations. And the purpose of these was really to give more of a picture of how can this look in our community. Here's how other communities are doing it, or here's an illustration of what we're recommending. It really just helps ground the recommendations in an achievable reality. And I've said this many times in the times that I have presented to you all or presented to the community, but it has always been our intent to hit the ground running with the plan. We've been working behind the scenes in getting implementation going before the plan was even finalized. And thankfully, due to a great partnership with partner nonprofit Resilient Cities Catalyst, we were able to fund some of these activities that you see on the slide. We were able to fund a complete street design for Bird Street. We're able to go out to community events to continue to do that coalition building among the neighborhood. And we were able to launch the Tampa Weatherwise Small Business Grant Program, which is both in Sulphur Springs and in West Tampa. And that is going to help small businesses purchase items that are going to help them be more resilient to extreme weather like heat and hurricanes. So in my next presentation, I'm going to present to you some project ideas per Councilwoman Young's motion. But in the meantime, after that, we're also going to continue to work with our technical working group departments to help them implement kind of their easy win implementation activities. And we're also going to reconvene the whole group at least quarterly to make sure that we are keeping Sulphur Springs top of mind for all of these departments. So I can answer any questions related to the final plan, or I can go right into the second presentation.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, let's keep going.
Okay, cool.
Can you bring up the next presentation, please? Item 116. We caught him by surprise.
Maybe I can't answer questions.
Uh-oh, that's not good. We only have the item for 115. You don't have one for 116?
I have a hard copy.
You have hard copies?
All right.
It happens. Thank you, CTTV.
Okay, this is stapled. Do you guys think I should take out the staple to?
That's okay, just keep trying.
Yeah. Okay.
We ain't fancy.
All right, I guess I'll just say my name again, just in case. Lauren Vasquez, City Planning Department. So for this presentation, I'm actually kind of glad I'll be able to point directly onto the paper for this one. So for this presentation, we were asked to come and, well, first of all, work with other departments to develop a specific budget for a catalyst project or program based on the priority actions identified in the plan and by the neighborhood. So to address that first point, we wanted to highlight
You're good, you're fine.
Okay. We wanted to highlight, City Council passed the motion on March 5th, and over the course of March, we met with 10 different departments, over 9 different meetings, and what you see on the left part of that slide really was the agenda for each of those meetings. So we started it off by first looking at all the assigned actions, the recommendations that the departments would be responsible for as written in the neighborhood action plan. And then we talked about what are your easy wins? What are things that you already have funding for that we can move forward? I just realized I was still holding the remote. So what are your easy wins? What are constraints to achieving the rest of the recommendations that are assigned to you in the plan? And then if those constraints were addressed, especially something like funding, what could be moved forward in the next fiscal year? And then we also made sure to review the letter from the Sulphur Springs Action League, the neighborhood association for the Sulphur Springs neighborhood, with the departments that were implicated in the letter, so that we could discuss the feasibility of some of the requests. And I forgot that it printed weird for us, this one, so imagine some nice pictures there. As highlighted, of course, in my last presentation and the presentations we've made before that, we did extensive community engagement as part of this, and not just traditional community engagement. We met people where they were at, on the street, at food banks, at school events. We wanted to get a holistic view of what the neighborhood needs were. And so as a result, when we're thinking about what are we gonna say are the top priorities of the neighborhood, we wanna make sure that we're reflecting the needs of everyone in the neighborhood. And what we found were that these top 5 needs, community safety, housing stability, safe streets, economic development, and parks access really were, oh, thank you, Javier had a nicer copy. There's the pretty pictures.
I just anticipated it'd be pictures of us when you said pretty pictures.
I'll have to think of that next time. Okay, so, now that I can note it, now that we're talking about the pictures, these are all pictures from the neighborhood, and from that extensive on the street engagement that we did. So these are the top 5 priorities, and while maybe you might talk to different residents in the neighborhood, they may number it in different ways. Their number 1 and their number 5 may be different from the next person's number 1 and number 5. We really found that these 5 topic areas were consistently very important to the vast majority of the people in the neighborhood. I think we're good. Okay, so today we are talking about really 2 different buckets of funding. We're talking about the surplus funding, $150,000 that was allocated by City Council earlier today. And then also generally talking about the development of fiscal year 2027 projects and programs. So one important thing to note for the surplus funding is that we are on a timeline for the surplus funding. We have to expend the $150,000 this fiscal year, in fiscal year 2026, so before the end of September. We took a look at the letter from the Neighborhood Association. This is the letter that they sent in very early March, late February, very early March, and really took to heart the quick, visible improvements. And I'll kind of get into some of their specific requests on the next slide, but I just wanted to highlight that that was something that we were considering when we were developing the surplus funding projects. For fiscal year 27, we're thinking more about larger scale projects, but in both cases, we really wanted something that had existing support, because as this council likely knows, even though fiscal year 2027, we have more time to develop and implement projects. One fiscal year is also not a lot of time to get something done. So we still wanted to make sure that we were suggesting something that had an existing foundation and was reasonable to implement within the next year. And then it really goes without saying that all the projects are rooted in those neighborhood priorities and the work and feedback that we heard throughout the plan. So before I get into this slide, I did just want to touch on, you all likely received a letter from the Sulphur Springs Action League this morning. And I just wanted to say, so they are firmly expressing their support for that mini grant program, for grants directly to business owners, homeowners, and those types of things. And we definitely, move it up, sorry. While we for sure support that and the idea of that, it was just deemed not feasible for us to do as part of the surplus funding because we need to get it expended by September 2026. And so as a result, when we were developing this, we really were thinking about, well, what can we do that is still achieving the spirit of what is being asked for? So they're asking, for how can we help small businesses? How can we help residents clean up, have their homes, their properties look a little nicer? And so here is what we came up with in that vein. The solid waste sweeps, we met with Neighborhood Enhancement and Solid Waste extensively to discuss this. Neighborhood Enhancement let us know that the most prevalent issue in the neighborhood is debris accumulation. And oftentimes that debris accumulation will then turn into the illegal dumping issue because people cannot afford to take their large items to the dump and pay those fees or pay the special pickup fees. So it is our hypothesis that by mitigating this at the source, by doing multiple sweeps, we're thinking our thoughts are quarterly, and coupling that with extensive community outreach and engagement. I'll touch a little bit more on our engagement model when we get to that last point, but this is really resident-led engagement and stewardship of the community. To the second point, the 60K towards small business growth acceleration, that is really focused on helping small businesses level up. So, for example, throughout our engagement, we know that there are a lot of informal businesses in Sulphur Springs, and so this technical assistance can help those businesses formalized. Or if the businesses are already formalized, maybe they want to move into a storefront. This technical assistance can help them do that, and that would dually support addressing commercial vacancy, which we know is a large issue in the neighborhood. And then to the last point, this is one of the requests that was directly noted in the letter from the Action League that we were able to directly support. And this is all about having the engagement that we've been doing continue. And that engagement model does involve employing residents to do the outreach and do the coalition building. So for example, through that philanthropic funding that we have through Resilient Cities Catalyst, we have an engagement consultant, or rather RCC has an engagement consultant that is already doing this work. So, working with the Parent-Teacher Association at Sulphur Springs K-8, paying a steward of the community that lives in the community, works in the community, their kids go to that school, to do surveys for the parents and learn more about what needs there are for safe routes to school and how we can better serve those needs. So this 20K will work towards continuing to fund that work, and the 70K is part of the sweeps. Part of that is that engagement. So 20K is kind of like the general, but also I want to note that part of the 70K is envisioned to be that kind of door-to-door outreach to really educate people on, hey, here, this day is coming up, here's what you need to do, here's how we can help you clean up your property, and things like that. So we are also working with our partner departments in the technical working group to work to continue to support priorities of the plan and priorities of the neighborhood in the fiscal year 2027 requests. As you are all aware, we're pretty early on in the budget season, and so we have just been working with these departments to partner and support the vision of the plan in whichever way that we can. And then, as I mentioned, we also discussed those easy wins, things that already had funding. So things like utilizing the Art Trust Fund or supporting parks, and they're already over $3 million allocated towards parks improvements in Sulphur Springs. City planning, me and my team, we're going to continue to provide support to those departments to make sure that those easy wins are being accomplished in Sulphur Springs and also being communicated to the community. I have a monthly newsletter that I send out to the neighborhood, and I make sure to let them know events that are coming up, city council coming up, and the work that we're doing month to month. So next steps, I believe that the financial resolution was passed this morning. And we're going to continue working with the technical working group, developing those fiscal year 27 projects and programs. I have with me here today mobility, economic opportunity, and Ms. Feely can also talk to housing and community development if necessary, if there are questions related to those departments. And we are available for any questions.
Thanks. I'll just drop my 2 cents and then be done. The SWEET program, I think, is a great idea. 2 thumbs up. I think that's a good first step. Let's see. Now you had activated your mic first.
Yeah, but I'll let Councilwoman Young go because it's her.
Well, I have Viera too.
Oh, no, I'm not.
Oh, you're not? Okay. And I have Maniscalco. Are you good? I'm going to go. Councilwoman Young, go ahead.
Thank you very much. To see, I working on this project in phase 1 during the community engagement, and to see where it has come now, and to be on this side of the project is very, it's very full circle, and I'm really excited just to see all the progress that has been made. I think that having action items and steps to move forward is key, so it doesn't become something that we just talk about. We're actually, putting money where, where our mouths are, and we're, making sure that we're putting money into Sulphur Springs, which I think is, well-deserved and so needed. I do have a question for the Bird Street design charrette. So is that a project that it's a complete street project that is happening, or is it going to?
So the design, yes, already happened. We are still awaiting the final digital files, and then Adam, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but at that point we would then look at, okay, what are the quick build opportunities of this design? How much funding do we have allocated in the existing Vision Zero Quick Build Fund? And then what are the long-term improvements, and kind of how those can get programmed into the future.
Right, exactly. So Adam Purcell, Transportation Services Director with Mobility. We had a 3-day workshop with a consultant that came in as part of this effort that helped the Mobility Department work through Bird Street. So Bird Street connects Florida and Nebraska under the interstate, and the interstate really divides this community, and it serves as a barrier to movement. So we thought Bird Street was critical in improving the bicycle pedestrian connection, particularly under the interstate, so that people can move freely within the community. We worked through that charrette. They're working on a design concept right now. We asked the consultant to give us near-term design solutions that we can implement at low cost, so that what we call quick build projects, so paint, delineators, without reconstructing stormwater, without reconstructing curb, without significant work, something that we could do as part of a repaving project. So we hope to get that in the next few months, few weeks from the consultant, so that we can start to look at how we can program it. We have available funding in the next FY for our quick build program, and depending on what comes back from this design charrette and this conceptual plan, we can implement some improvements, some near-term improvements on Bird. And then what we asked the consultant to do was not just the near term, but take a look at the long term. If we could program or seek federal funds for a larger capital project to make that kind of improvement more permanent, then that's something we wanted to evaluate as well. So we know there's a short-term need and a long-term need, but what we expect to implement in the next few months is likely a quick build project on Bird Street.
That is very awesome. Thank you, Adam. Yep. And I also really love employing the residents to do the work. I think that is an awesome concept. I think you have this, sense of ownership, over your community, over your neighborhood, and wanting to continue to see it flourish. So I think that that's awesome. But that's all. Thank you so much and for being very thorough.
Councilwoman Hurtak, followed by Maniscalco.
I agree. I think this is fabulous. And just because it's a project that's kind of near and dear to my heart, we reached out to Parks to find out part of that $3 million. So I do want to just give an update to the community if they're listening and to the rest of council. The River Tower Park update. So I got the money just for a loop. We reached out and it's expanded in scope without me realizing it. So it's very exciting. We're gonna have a circular path, improved parking, benches, picnic shelters, which is really cool. And that was not on my list, but I love it. I think it's wonderful. The path that will connect to the boardwalk that goes under 275. And once I let people know about it, that was kind of on me. They were like, this isn't safe. So maybe I should have stayed quiet. Who knows? But either way, both of them are going to be repaired. And because they're working together, they're all going to be permitted together. And unfortunately, they're on the river, which means that we have to get an EPC approval. And they said that's like 6 months. So the goal is to get it started in January, to start shoveling in January. So we'll see. I have fingers crossed that maybe it'll go through faster. Who knows? But especially because we're not really doing anything to harm the river's edge. But also I got an update on the Sulphur Springs pool because that's everybody's other favorite. It says the pool deck boring and soil sample collections completed. The samples have been sent out to test to determine the cause of the pool sinking. But the seawall permitting is complete and the seawall is currently under construction. But once the results come back to the lab, we'll have more information. And I wanted to talk about mobility and in connection with that, because with the Bird Street, when we first biked the new Green Artery, we used Bird Street, and that was really scary. And so the second time I did it, I took everybody through the park, and that's how they found out about the boardwalk. And so there definitely will be more connections. So I would love to see, Bird is a really underused street, and I don't know if it needs to be to 4 to 5 lanes anymore. So I would love talking about what a double protected bikeway might be there. But more importantly, we do need to connect those two. But also, once it gets into the neighborhood, Bird Street, they said over and over again that that's a real big street that people want to be able to go up and down and around, and its importance to the community. So this is exactly what I was hoping to see, because this is how everything connects together.
Yeah, so I just wanted to throw this up on the wolf real quick to show that there have been some complete street improvements installed on Bird Street through the neighborhood. And in fact, when we started the project and we were hearing, how bad these speed bumps were, which have now been redone, we were hearing praise about the speed tables on Bird Street, which is not to say if there's still improvements to be made to make this street safer, we're all ears, but we're definitely thinking about this in terms of, again, that complete street connectivity, which is one of the priority action areas of our plan.
Right. But going along with that, Bird is also a major car thoroughfare, and you know me, I don't want bikes and pedestrians on the car thoroughfares as much as possible. So really looking at those parallel streets and looking at those as the bike boulevard areas that we want to encourage multi-mobility to go down. So I would really love to hear more about that.
Okay, yeah, we haven't started to look at other roadways within Sulphur Springs for complete streets improvements. The traffic calming exercise kind of happened over the last 5 years. You can see every red point here is where they came in and put an all-way stop. So there was some traffic analysis in the neighborhood. They talked to the residents. They came in and implemented 4-way stops. Those are a really inexpensive way to slow traffic in a neighborhood. They also came in and put speed tables and speed cushions. You can see the blue dots throughout the community are locations where traffic calming speed humps and speed tables or cushions were installed. And then one of the places that we're looking at making improvements is our sidewalk priorities. So we have a top 50 priority list. Our priority sidewalks kind of flank the K through 8 school there. Right now that's a K through 8. I know we have a pending memo to do an evaluation for safe routes to the middle school students that are going to be shifted. We've already talked to Hillsborough County Schools on that. They're going to bus every middle school student that is shifted to a new school. So we'll continue to look at that, because I think one of the things we're getting back is as those older children go to other schools, the younger children are going to have to walk to their K through 6 school by themselves.
Yeah.
So, or K through 5 school by themselves. So that's where we're looking at doing sidewalk investment near the school. And then the Rolette Park piece, that's a bridge with a very narrow sidewalk on it. We're looking at options through a 2023 SS4A project that we're waiting on Federal Highway to finalize the grant agreement on. But that's the subject of another safety improvement with federal funds that we're looking at in the neighborhood. So we haven't started to look into the community. That's a good note. I'll take that back. But shifting we tried to slow the traffic on Bird, but potentially shifting it to other corridors is an option as well.
And just because you brought it up, I'm glad you brought the sidewalks up, because that was on my list too. But as you go under the railroad tracks to get to the other side, that's also a very narrow corridor. And there's a lot of folks who, again, don't use cars in the neighborhood. So I don't know if that's still an active rail line. It is? Okay.
Yeah.
So then, looking at ways that we can get people safely under that railroad trestle, or amongst other things. I know that the Green Artery Trail is going to be looked at again now that we've closed the street, or rather, there's a part of Rogers Park Golf Course that was a rail spur that I know we're considering for multimodal as well.
Right. We've constructed segments D and E. So the blue and the pink segments of the Green Artery have been constructed. We talked about River Tower Park and how that trail is going to connect the middle piece. And then what we're doing in mobility now is we're working with our Vision Zero engineer and a Vision Zero planner to go through the remaining segments of the Green Artery and begin to get conceptual design for those and begin to get planning level cost estimates. We have funding in FY 28 and 29 that could potentially be used to support the Green Artery. So right now, that's what we're targeting for that funding. And it's a couple $1 million to implement additional segments of the Green Artery. So
that's
what we're
wonderful,
working
but you
towards.
got to take that off a Sly. That's a very scary and dangerous place to ride a bike. I know, because I do it.
I'm sorry, which one?
Sly Avenue.
Sly.
That's scary and dangerous.
Sly is part of a 2022 SS4A grant that we hope to improve the condition on Sly as well.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, and I just wanted to plug as well, I got the opportunity to be in a Reconnecting Communities Institute working group on active transportation, along with one of our consultants on this plan. And we were able to, travel and learn from peer communities and present Sulphur Springs as a case study, because as we can see between the railroad, the highway, and the state roadways, there are so many transportation created constraints in the neighborhood, and so we are taking those lessons learned and moving them forward in our implementation activities.
Thank you. Councilman Maniscalco.
No, thank you.
Okay, very good. Okay, we're good. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Our- Yeah, okay, our last agenda item, Ms. Feely.
Thank you, Council. One thing I want to talk on before Lauren leaves, Abby Feely, Administrator, Development and Economic Opportunity. The conversation around Bird Street, if you'll remember, we're still working on that as part of the Land Development Code update. That's one of the corridors we're studying. So that is where these street improvements will meet the vertical construction, and we will start to create that place that we really are looking to. And also, Lauren's participating in a HART
Yes.
corridor study.
TOD Phase 2 that is focusing on this northern section of the proposed HART BRT route.
Nice.
So we are leveraging what we've learned in this plan and moving that forward in that plan.
Very good.
So as all these efforts come together, they really will start to work together, and we're ensuring that as they look at the right-of-way improvements that Adam was just talking about, those have a partnership with the land, and that this all goes back to the action plan, and that all of those things are cognizant of one another, so.
And Ms. Feely, you promised me this was gonna be a short update.
So short. Abby Feely, quick update on the LDC. Many of you, if you're already registered for Tampa Forward, we had a newsletter that went out today. One of the things I've committed to with you along this process is, number one, to come and talk to you, be here, be present, keep you engaged in what's going on, where we're at. But another thing we learned is through the comprehensive plan update is keeping the public engaged through the process so that we're not coming into you on that first adoption hearing of the land development code, seeing that we should have done more public outreach. So we just set up 4 upcoming meetings that myself and Eric Cotton from Development Coordination will be going out. We did a north, south, east, and west. They're going to be held at these community centers. I'm working with communications to get we've got the locations and time set up, and just making sure we're getting that word out. This will also be going on the downtown Ike kiosks. Sorry, it's late. The Ike kiosks. We're also working on getting it up on the digital board at Hannah. We're also working on getting it out on some other social media platforms to create that engagement for these upcoming public meetings. In addition to these 4, we will also be presenting on the THAN June 10th meeting. That is a virtual meeting. So that would be 5 total meetings. And then we're looking at doing these when we do installment 2 and then when we do installment 3, because as you know, it's coming in 3 installments. So that's really where we're focused in the next few weeks, is on continued public engagement. I think the survey instrument out on the website was closed, but it is going to be reopened in concert with these going out. Also, anyone out there can email Tampa Forward, and those comments come right into us, and we work with Jeff and the Clarion team to ensure that those comments are being integrated as well.
Okay, Councilwoman Hurd.
I really appreciate this. This is great. I have actually been doing some speaking engagements with, the community. We're reaching out to the community, but also with the business community and with some of our commercial real estate folks. And so anything you have, any connections you have, they have been very interested in what we're doing. So we really want to make sure that there might be a meeting that might focus more on commercial.
Sure.
Because this is all seems to be focused around residential. And one of the things we are hearing from our neighbors is they want commercial spaces. But I think oftentimes they don't know what that looks like. If you want commercial, how do you get it? The land, and how does the land development code connect with that? But also just to reach out to the commercial business community to make sure that, their questions are answered, or maybe they see something because they work in the commercial space all day that we don't.
Yep, we can do that. We could do SOREP or NAOP. There's a lot of organizations that we can get involved with that way. No problem.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ms.
Okay.
Beal. You have a
Thank
beautiful
you.
afternoon. Thank you again for your staff and everything you do. Okay, that concludes our regularly scheduled program. Regular business is done. Councilman Carlson, new business.
There have been several stories recently about, I don't want to talk about particular cases, but several stories about the culture of the city, and the word retaliation has been circulated. A year or so ago, I made a motion you all supported to have a discussion about protecting whistleblowers. The city attorney said we were limited about what we can do, but I've, over the last few years, had a lot of calls from current and former employees who in particular are worried about retaliation from people inside the administration. I would recommend that the current and former employees would like us to do something about it. And I would recommend, since we have limited authority, that we invite the chief of staff to just talk about that on, I picked June 4th. But motion to ask the chief of staff to return on June 4th to speak to council and employees, through the TV about about how the administration will protect employees from retaliation.
It's open.
It's open, okay. So we have a motion for Councilman Carlson. Is there a second? A second from Councilwoman Young. You're so quiet. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it.
Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
Although it's flattering that folks in the communication department like copying things that I post online, and some of my colleagues, they're paid a lot of money and they can come up with their own ideas. I suggest that the administration come up and the communication department for them come up with some original ideas. Also, I think there are certain things that have been overused, like generational. Everything can't be a generational or transformational. There are a lot of important projects that the city is getting through, but some of that seems tired. But in school, if you plagiarize, you get an F. And so if we see plagiarization from city council, we can be flattered by it, or we can say, hey, you guys are getting paid a lot, you need to do your own work. Thanks.
Councilman Vera.
Thank you very much. One quick one, 3-minute one. I want a motion on July 16th. Many of us know Portico Housing Solutions. We funded them, their efforts, and I want Pastor Justin LaRosa to come and talk just 5 minutes about the good work that he does. I'm also going to invite a nice gentleman with him by the name of Taps. Some of y'all may have met him. He's a local artist, really nice gentleman who lives in that housing. So.
Well, I have a conflict because we already have Police of the Month, and actually I have PSTA is requesting us to come that day
it's
too.
not a, we can do, what's the next available date here?
Let's see, we've only got one presentation on the 30th of July.
How about August 27th?
August 27th. Okay, that works.
Yeah, I'm down with that.
August 27th. Sounds good.
Okay,
We
that's
have a
my
motion. We have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Thank you very much, Council. Next, I wanted to talk about, I sent out a motion on this regarding the apparent, in New Tampa, there has been a lot of chatter online, and we're getting emails, and at least I'm getting emails, and everything on the apparent transfer or prospective transfer of an asset that I believe would be, I think it's Fire Station 23, if what I'm hearing is correct. Again, there's a lot of vagueness out there, and we're hearing a lot of it from New Tampa. I always operate from the presumption that if you're in District 7, you've always got to yell a little bit louder, bang a little bit harder whenever it comes to things in your district. I've dealt with that time and time again, I suggest, and I think that the situation with fire response times over my 10 years, the last 3 stations that we've gotten have been for District 7 area, one just outside of it, but at least north in New Tampa. I've been fighting for a long time on response times in K-Bar Ranch in particular, where we do have a challenge there. I've always been of the belief, as has been stated in the past, by the way, by Tampa Fire Rescue, there should be a fire station dedicated in K-Bar Ranch. But, there have been other compromises. We talk about the cut through, which I don't think is going to be coming for at least another year, if what I'm understanding is right, but we are here. So again, like I indicated in my memo, I've been made aware of potential asset transfer from New Tampa that has many, many people concerned. People are concerned because they live out those response times every day, and they hear what their neighbors talk about, particularly in K-Bar Ranch. So I want to have a clear briefing on a position statement on what is happening and what is going on. The New Tampa community needs to receive a clear understanding of the plan of action, operational considerations, short and long-term plans to address response times in 33647, and how this potential change would affect it. My motion is on May, what did I put in my memo? May 21st. To have both a representative of Tampa Fire Rescue as well as a representative from International Local 754 to come and provide a briefing regarding response times and fire rescue coverage in New Tampa and the 33647 area. And Suling, I'll get you this memo, with particular attention given to K-Bar Ranch. This includes the potential deployment change or asset relocation involving New Tampa resources that, again, has generated a lot of concern in the area. I do want to have transparency on that. I always say that I always joke that I got a chip on my shoulder about New Tampa. And it's funny because I'm going to say this. Under Mayor Castor, we've had great strides on a lot of things with parks and recreation, different challenges that we've had, including mobility in New Tampa. But I listened to the state of the city, and there wasn't a mention of New Tampa, which I thought was a missed opportunity for this administration to talk to some of its successes. And people in my district noticed that. So I want to build on those successes with this report. So that is my motion.
Councilman Miranda, May 21st, we have Revenue and Finance on the mid-year review. We have the large digital Office of Signs. It is going to be a really, and we've already got 3 presentations that day. Is there other opportunities, or could you do a written report? And
Unfortunately,
then
no.
have it come back after that?
I can't. Look, we have rules on number of reports that we can have. I'm getting a lot of feedback from a lot of people in New Tampa over this. And by the way, there's a chance that if this gets resolved before and we find out what it is, that I withdraw it, right? But this is something that is very, very pressing that I'm getting a lot of feedback from New Tampa on. And for me, time is of the essence. Time is of the essence on this. And by the way, we can limit time on this, if that is a challenge, to 15 minutes from beginning to end. The what? I don't think so. Oh, thank you.
Okay, with the time limitation of 15 minutes,
May 21st.
May 21st. And then we close that, agenda to no more accommodations, no more staff reports.
I'm good with that.
Okay. So, we have a motion from Councilman Vieira, a second from Councilman Carlson, for, as stated, his request from, report, no more than 15 minutes.
15 minutes, Cuban time.
And a closed agenda after that. Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you, Council.
Okay. Councilwoman Young.
I have two motions and then just brief community notes. So one, I move to make a motion for staff to review the applications for an honorary building named in the honor of the late Mr. Frank A. Reddick and come back and present to council on June 18, 2026. The building is located at Williams Park Complex, 4362 East Osborne Avenue. It is a pleasure to make this motion in honor of Mr. Reddick's legacy of dedication, service, and his consistent commitment to improving the lives of those in the Tampa Bay community. I have complied with Tampa City Council Rules of Procedures number 7.
That was going to be my request. Very good.
See,
We have a
we're
motion.
on it.
We have a motion from Councilwoman Young. We have a second from Councilman Maniscalco. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank
Opposed?
you.
Ayes have it.
Thank you. Yeah, we've been working very hard on this, making sure we got the application right, everything. So I'm very excited to be able to do that. Second, I move to make a motion to present a commendation on June 18, 2026 to the ladies of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, recognizing their commitment to service and political awareness on Delta Day at City Hall.
Okay, it is open. We have a motion from Councilwoman Young, a second from Councilman Vieira. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it.
And if you didn't know, my lovely legislative aide is a member of the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And also my predecessor, Ms. Gwen Henderson, as well.
I'm
So
aware of that as well.
very excited. And then also just some community notes. So, you know, I'm always everywhere. If you have not visited, if you live in the East Tampa area, on 30th, the TGH Community Garden is open to the public, and they have, it's really awesome. They have classes there for students. There's a food pharmacy, a program that they actually work with the doctors at TGH. It is really, really awesome. So we got to go and tour. So I advise anyone, if you're in the area, to please go and visit. We also had the Just Elementary and Stewart Middle School groundbreaking. There's also the launch of the Tampa Treasure Hunt was at Riverfest this weekend, and if you go to Tampa Treasure Hunt, it's a way just for, you know, families and, you know, community to get out, you know, walk, bike. You can take the streetcar to these different businesses that have these little treasure boxes in front of them, and they have little treats in them. So cool way to get the kids out, something fun to do for summer. I was also keynote speaker for the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Scholarship Program, where they give out over $68,000 in scholarships to some awesome students. And when I was listening to their bios and what they're going to school for, I was like, okay, we're going to be okay, because they were awesome. Also, the Ridgewood Community Neighborhood Association, they just kind of revived, and so we had their their neighborhood association meeting at Armature Works. It was awesome. And also, I got to tour the Tampa Family Health Center, and they have some really amazing programs that they're doing at Tampa Family Health, that if you are, you know, a community member, please, you know, look into it, research, take advantage. That's it.
Yeah, they really good services.
Yeah.
20 seconds.
Okay.
I think it's not a motion. What Councilwoman Young said on Gwendolyn Henderson, I did want to note that today Community Tampa Bay posthumously awarded the late Councilwoman Henderson the Silver Medallion Award. I couldn't go because of council. I love Community Tampa Bay, but I just want to acknowledge that for Gwen's legacy and memory, and she, you know, a legacy that's well deserved.
Councilwoman Hurtag.
Thank you, and thanks for mentioning the treasure boxes. We're actually thinking about one of my Easy Sunday morning rides to do that. So So I'll keep people posted. So first of all, to go back on what I pulled today, item 39, I'm going to ask staff to provide a written report explaining how many spaces are left in Hannah Avenue building that are not being used and that will require additional funds for the build out by June 4th.
We have a motion from Councilwoman Hurtak, a second from Councilman Miranda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
And then I wanted to just float this idea by you because we've had quite a few people come to us to really take a look at the resolution that the group showed us this morning about electrical rates. And I know that it's technically not a council thing, but this is literally what I hear about constantly when I'm going through the community. And at this point, maybe taking a look at the resolution and having our council take a look at the resolution and maybe talking about it during new business, or rather old business or whatever. Yeah, at the next regular meeting, just to see if this is even something that we want to do. It's just such a big issue, and I feel like if we can encourage our legislators to do something, or at least say that we are hearing people, we understand this is an issue. I know we can't affect it, but I think their statement today was made a lot of sense. We can advocate for them in a way they cannot.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say in general, we can't talk during public comment, but if folks go back and look at the stories, there are many resolutions that we did in the past that we tried to do things, and the legislature would do the opposite of it. And there are a lot of, I don't know about this organization, there are a lot of organizations where people get bonuses or incentivized to get resolutions, and they just check the box on all different places. And whatever the subject is, I'm not in favor of any resolution that is not going to get anything done, is actually going to do the opposite. If we ask Tallahassee to do something, they're probably going to do the opposite of it. Yeah, so if you do that, then and I got to go to another meeting, so I'll see you guys.
I think we all have our heart is there, but I think that is the we try to restrict our activities, and our schedules are so full and so big, and it's kind of outside the scope of what we do as council. So while I appreciate the intent, and I think, like I said, we all agree with you, but I'm kind of on the same side with Councilman Carlson. Councilman Miranda? Yes, absolutely.
I think we can solve all those problems to some degree, and you can help nature. You can do a lot of things. That's why I turn in my electric bill every month. This month, it was $16.39, I think it was. So if we have some type of funding mechanism, cooperative with the neighbors, with your organization, to put them on. You know, the city of Tampa electric bill is going up just like everybody else's. However, our total cost for the year was down like 3.5% because of the solar systems that we put in. So there is a payout, and I don't know how that Picnic Island came at it 19 years. I still question that in my mind, because mine wasn't 19 years. Mine paid out at 7.5 years. But it's true that I have a house. I don't have a 10-bedroom house. It's 3-bedroom, 2-bath, small, 1,500 square feet. So what I'm saying is, instead of going after somebody, let's solve the problem. How do we get money and solve two problems? Help nature and help the citizens at the same time. We haven't done that.
Yeah,
maybe we're going to form a small committee
used,
that understands those things, that come about and tell us what to do.
And the federal government used to have programs.
Yeah, they used to have. They took them out, but there's still opportunities coming, I believe, and we ought to start looking at not what we have to do, how do we save long-term and do two things at once with $1, not $2.
Yeah, thank you, Councilman Pierre.
I have a question, because I wouldn't be adverse, and by the way, as we learned with the flooding assistance program, managing this is very difficult, but I'm just bringing this up, which is because rates obviously are going to be onerous on people and so forth, particularly within the CRAs. Just putting that out there.
It's true. I know what you're going to say now. The
Yeah.
solar thing, you're going to bring it up.
Yeah, no, anything
Yeah,
and
it's
everything that
there.
we can do, we should do, because again, people are in a hell of an affordability crisis, the working class, middle class, working poor, and so forth in Tampa and Florida, and everything that we can do to help them, we could. So I I think Councilwoman Hurtak's remarks, and she's not even, by the way, asking for a motion right now. She's just saying, what can we do on this issue? And I think that's not a bad question with tax dollars.
Yeah, so to Councilman Vera and Miranda, I'm wondering, can part of the conversation be, we know that there are a lot of federal programs that are being gutted, but can part of the conversation be if there is a solution or some kind of program that could help people, have more access to solar or some kind of, something. But I want to commend the two young ladies that came because they are they're doing their due diligence and they are speaking out, and I have to applaud them for that. And I recognize that from this seat, we can't, it is kind of out of our hands, but I don't think it's something that we can't just maybe have a conversation about and just see what is there. And now you bring up with the CRAs, what is there? We know what we can't do. Is there anything that we can?
Well, that's part of the issue is it's not even solar, because a lot of the folks I'm hearing from, because I've gone to a couple of meetings where people have talked about this, is they live in a rental. So they can't do solar. But now, they are coming up with solar panels that you can hang off of balconies and like all of this stuff. So I don't know what we can do. But again, I just kind of sitting on our hands just doesn't feel right to me. And I know we have a rule about it, but sitting on the hands just doesn't feel right with my heart.
Councilman Bureau is going to be in the legislature. They have a bigger hand in this, and if anybody wants to run for Congress, there we go.
But my question is, is this something we want to bring forward or not? I heard 2 no's, but I didn't hear any others no's, and I didn't hear yeses. So
we'll think about it.
Okay, we'll think about it and come back. Okay.
Councilman Maniscalco.
Yes, I want to wish a happy birthday to Tanya, who does so much in our office.
That's right.
Here, it's not today, but I think it's this weekend.
I would sing her happy birthday, but I don't think she's going to listen to this when she's not here.
And I want to wish a happy Mother's Day to all the special moms of my life. So I have my wife, Valerie, my sister, my mom, Lisa, my legislative aide, my 2 mother-in-laws, because I have a stepmother-in-law, and Sue Ling. Happy Mother's Day.
I never got a happy Father's Day from you.
Beat that, Miranda.
Beat that, I just did.
There you go.
The electric bill in the city of Tampa is right at a little over $70,000 a day. So I love to send something to the legislature, but how am I going to solve it? I don't have the power to solve it.
I think you're going to hear something in a few minutes about electric bills, but
But it is what it is.
Let me hand the gavel over here. I'd like PSTA has requested 10 minutes to provide an update on the status of the ferry, and I thank the council and the mayor for their commitment and support. A motion to allow the PSTA to make a 10-minute presentation update on the ferry on July 16th, 2026.
Isn't that the day that they present the budget?
It's
I'm almost positive it is.
10 minutes in the morning. We only have the police officers. We don't have. That's all we have.
That's not on the calendar yet. I don't know.
Expect it, because it's usually right around.
Yeah. Can we go for 5?
5 minutes?
Yes.
I'll ask him to do 5 minutes.
Because it will turn into 10, so we might as
Sam,
well
ask
just go
him to
with
do
10.
5 minutes.
Okay. So I have a motion from Chair Clendenin.
Second.
I have a second from Councilman Maniscalco. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Okay, very good. And hence, what we're trying with this agenda is that I would like to make a motion that we amend council rules to no more than 3 verbal staff reports per agenda. Instead of the 5, not leave what's already existing, but in addition, we limit it to 3 verbal.
I would really rather just limit the stuff on the consent agenda, because that to me is more in depth.
Well, that requires a lot of behind-the-scenes work for us, but
but 119 items is just ridiculous. I mean, I couldn't read everything, and that's the background.
But I'm trying to say these long, drawn-out meetings.
This is not a long, drawn-out meeting. We got to hear it by 5.
Barely. And that's only because we put effort, because we
Yeah,
guess
yeah,
what? We
I'm
only
not- I
had 3
can't-
staff reports
I
today.
can't support that,
We
though.
only had 3 staff reports. A motion to amend council rules to have no more than 3 verbal staff reports per meeting.
Which means that we're just pushing things further and further.
No, not
There's-
verbal
there-
staff reports. You can have written staff reports.
Yeah, but the whole point is people want to hear us, we want to talk about that. Like, if you're asking for a staff report, it should be something that we're all discussing.
I think we have way too many verbal staff reports. Councilman Vera.
Trying to think of, no, that doesn't make any sense. Disregard.
Why don't we try 3, and if we find that it's not enough?
Nope. Yeah, no.
If we were a dying city, you wouldn't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
May I, Mr. Chair?
Councilman.
How about we limit time for real on staff reports, because that's kind of the challenge sometimes. And maybe you can consider no more than 20 minutes, and if you go
No,
over that.
they're already only supposed to be, whatever time on that.
And when I say enforcement, I say, I know it's hard to enforce that, but once you go past 20 minutes, you need a supermajority to get past it so that it's not just on the chairman. Just an idea.
That's not a bad idea. I think you should bring this back, but
Staff reports are already limited to 5 minutes.
Yeah, I can't support limiting staff reports. Just can't do it anymore. I think what we have is good. I think we need to limit. Like, for me, the consent stuff is that's just really overwhelming.
The problem with, and I saw an analysis of the consent, because I pushed back on the agenda, is that like the consent agenda items were really just the basic functions of the city. And I bet you if you parsed out that, I don't know what you would like delay or not handle.
Well, the issue is, I have to go through 20, I had over 24 questions on my prep meeting, and I didn't get half of them answered. And so I'm like running back and forth on Wednesday, trying to get my answers, and it's just too much to take in.
Okay, well, I'm not hearing any support for limiting it, but I'm gonna start enforcing the 5 minutes, because that is a rule. Okay, I'm gonna recognize our wonderful budget analyst, because she would like to have 1 minute of discussion.
Yes, good afternoon. Hager Kopesky, City Council Budget Analyst. So a little bit timely here. So I hope most of you have been able to see an email I sent through, and I realized today was a long day, you may not have. But basically the synopsis was that they are working to strive to hit the GMP timing for June for the Fire Station 24. And in participating in a project meeting last week, I realized that the underlying infrastructure, i.e. electrical support on a roof, things that are necessary to ready a facility for solar, is not in the plan. Now, it was my understanding, and the only reason I'm bringing this to you is simply because of timing, to make sure that what you believe is happening is clear. So I was under the understanding that the actual solar panels would come at a later time, but the underlying infrastructure to ready the facility would be part of the building opening. That is not currently the case, and so I need to bring this to you because if there is a desire to move in that direction, we would need to request administration to ask the project team to bring that back in to the scope.
Thank you. Councilman Vera.
Yeah, no, and we talked about this before, and I looked at it, and, it would probably cost more money to do that, correct, or?
I know it would cost something, I don't know what it would be.
Yeah, I'm not gonna, that's just not my thing. Somebody else wants to move for it, sure, but
I
I'm not.
understand. Yep.
Not my
I'm
bag.
sorry, I missed that part.
What she's saying is that initially in our discussion about the construction of the fire station, it was supposed to be prepped for solar panel installation. Right now, as we're working towards getting the gross maximum price, we knew that the panels wouldn't be there, but we thought it would be fitted so that we could eventually retrofit it with solar panels. The infrastructure to do the retrofitting to be able to retrofit is not there. So there's no accommodation for solar at this point.
Listen, if my house could have solar, so can a fire station.
I'm gonna agree with him.
I don't want to hear excuses.
No.
And his house is from 1968.
Well,
Before,
My
house was built about 1959 or 60,
Well, also,
and I haven't touched no rafter.
Can I suggest that we ask them to come back and report to us what this?
Yeah, that's fine.
I thought the rule
So
was new buildings had to.
Not sure about that, but the reason I want to make this clear is that we're kind of running out of time in the sense that June is when they will actually present you with the GMP. And so that said, I think what it would require is them going back to the construction team and simply saying to get the electrical in, what would that be?
Can we
But they won't do that without
written report
direction
May
to do
17th?
so.
Or we can assign Councilman Vera to do that coordination and report back to us.
That's not,
report May 17th.
yeah, that's what I'm for.
Okay,
If
can I get a
council-
motion? We have a motion from Councilman Vera for the administration to provide a written report on May 17th, I'm sorry, May 21st. May 21st, 2026, on the status of solar installation prep for the fire station.
And I would save the additional cost, so you have something to
And
base a
what,
decision
well,
on.
would they have that information?
Well, I'm already telling you what you're asking for, which is, it's not in there.
Yeah,
So
okay.
you need something additional, yep.
Okay,
Sorry, that came out wrong.
okay, got it.
Besides cost, there's also the sense of time, that if you're asking for that and that's not in there and somebody's already drafting up plans, you're not gonna get a GMP by June with
Well, I
this
think,
on there.
again,
Or
because
will-
this
or
is an
will
important,
you?
this is an important
Let's
point.
just get the status report.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
okay. Okay, motion to receive and file?
We need to vote on that.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought we did. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion to receive and file.
So moved.
A motion to receive and file, second from Councilman Maniscalco. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it.